Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a brand new live stream. Make sure you guys like the stream down below. Make sure you guys subscribe if you're new, hit the bell, do all that good stuff. Today, we've waited for quite some time to have a live discussion about the 2024 primary with somebody who may disagree a little bit here and there. And today, we've brought on An0maly, who is an influencer, to represent the more DeSantis side of things. And we're going to be having a little bit of a back and forth here on today's live stream. So I'll let you introduce yourself, have the floor. Most people know where I stand on the whole Trump-DeSantis debacle, but where do you stand exactly for 2024?
Yeah, so I don't know why my thing's pulsing so much. It looks like I'm in Hiroshima over here, but hopefully my webcam kind of stops that. Yeah, so I wanted to just do this opening statement because I see people on both sides. I feel like things are obviously tribal, and some people are so in the bag for Trump or so in the bag for the DeSantis. I don't really identify as either. I try to do news analysis, so I feel like, I think some people would agree, some people would disagree. The day that DeSantis said he was going to run against Trump, it was like people who said that Florida did a great job with COVID are now saying that he didn't do a good job with COVID. A lot of these people that you would consider DeSimps, who are just professional DeSantis dick riders, all of a sudden they're talking about things I was talking about in 2020 with the lockdowns, but they never talked about it when it actually mattered. So I even asked the question with a lot of these DeSantis influencers, do you actually care about this stuff, or are you just pretending to care about it just because he's running against Trump? In the same way Trump is kind of parroting old CNN COVID data talking points that I don't think he believes. So I kind of see the foolishness on both sides. I've always done news analysis. I've called out DeSantis before the day that Trump told everyone to hate DeSantis, like before when everyone was licking his shoes. I noticed what Vivek's been talking about, the 2019 bill that he signed that I would consider paving the way for hate speech in America under the guise of anti-Semitism. Trump also passed that through executive order. I disagreed with Trump signing the omnibus bill in 2019 after he said he never would. And then obviously the COVID stuff was just like a socialist, communist, big pharma overhaul of the country that led to inflation. And I disagreed with a lot of that stuff. So I'm not coming from this fake position that a lot of people are coming from. I just look at the situation and I feel like for some reason, instead of leaning into the truth and the authenticity that Trump really crushed for 4 years, I feel like he has these Hillary vibes of like, it's my time now. How dare you, challenge me? And I see the double standards among a lot of people on both sides, but especially the Trump side, where if he employs 30 rhinos and hangs out with rhinos and does things with Lindsey Graham and, says nice things about Gavin Newsom, but he's meaner to Thomas Massie and, Kayleigh McEnany than he is to Gavin Newsom, at least just be honest about it rather than be like, oh, well, when Trump employs 50 rhinos, he's not a rhino, but when 3 hang around DeSantis, he's a rhino. So I feel like the Republican Party under Trump, this new campaign is like a movement of double standards, hypocrisy, no values, no morals, and they don't care when he does dishonest or corrupt stuff or socialist stuff. It's like they only care when someone points it out. So that's kind of my stance. And if the election were tomorrow, I would vote for DeSantis over Trump, but I don't trust him. Like, it's not like I'm like on my knees like Dave Rubin or something. Not metaphorically, of course. I'm not trying to get a hate speech strike on your channel, but, I'm not that type of person. I would just vote for him over Trump.
So is there a reason why you would support DeSantis more than Trump? Because I'll agree with you in the stance that a lot of these DeSantis people are saying things that they honestly may not believe, because back then during COVID, a lot of them were saying, get vaccinated. Even DeSantis himself was telling people to get vaccinated over 1,600 times, for example. And yeah, there are some Trump influencers that will blow the way the wind does as well, I'm sure. But when it comes down to it, why do you believe that DeSantis is like more anti-establishment from Trump? Because it seems like you're not coming through like the whole like electability lens. You're not coming through the whole like, oh, DeSantis is somebody who, has the ability to go out there and expand the coalition win, etc. You're not saying like, oh, Trump was, too brash and bold. You're saying like he's not enough. So why do you believe that DeSantis is the better option in that regard than Trump, if you're choosing to lean more into that side of things?
Yeah, sure. First, I just want to say the one thing that I think Trump is clearly has an edge on is foreign policy. I think he did a good job. He talks to world leaders. I'm not crying when he talks to Kim Jong-un. I think that's cool and effective. His talk on Putin and Ukraine ending the war, I like that. So I like that about Trump. Pretty much everything else I'm kind of tired of, where For example, I saw Katrina Pearson tweet recently. She said that Trump left in all the Obama holdovers. We knew how deep the swamp is. Trump decided to leave them there, hire them. I watched a Hannity interview recently where he said that, he hired Christopher Wray, a FBI director, because Chris Christie told him to, and Democrats liked it. So I feel like Trump, although he's really funny, he's like this character of flattery. You're better off being nice to him like Gavin Newsom than sharing a poll number he doesn't want to hear. Like, he's very petty and childish and easy to manipulate. So I think DeSantis has proven that he wields power more efficiently, where Trump, to me, is someone that's like a leader that's like, this is the problem, but then he never fixes it, where DeSantis doesn't just like throw his hands in the air. He just kind of figures out how to systemically do it. One standout thing when it comes to hiring somebody that I think is a good person versus the swamp, he hired Joseph Ladapo as Surgeon General in Florida. I think the COVID stuff's huge. I don't think it's a small issue because I think it led to the economy implosion. I think most of Trump's great accomplishments, the Democrats got to wash away because of all the COVID stuff. So I don't see it as a small issue. And DeSantis hired somebody that was a frontline doctor against Big Pharma and against lockdowns. And Trump hired Jerome Adams, who blocked me on Twitter, loser Surgeon General, who thinks COVID's the tip of the iceberg. That guy sucks. Shout out Jerome Adams. Sorry, buddy. I hope you get a lot of money doing little tours or whatever on the Trump campaign. You got Alex Azar, Trump put at HHS, who was a pharmacy executive for Eli Lilly. That's who Trump put above Fauci. There's Fauci, there's NIAID, and then there's HHS. Trump put a pharmacy lobbyist executive there, and then he hired Scott Gottlieb for FDA, who went off to Pfizer after that revolving door that it's not just Trump. Obama does it, Biden does it, they all do it. So if I saw Trump say, hey, that's what I did and I'm going to do it different this time, I'd probably vote for him. My vote is not like in the bucket of DeSantis. I'm not one of these people hanging out with him. My vote's still winnable. That's why I'm trying to have this conversation, see if you could sway me. I just don't like the fact that he doesn't admit any of that. I like the fact that Thomas Massie and DeSantis say, we printed too much money and it was also our fault, not just Biden's fault. We shouldn't have done that. Whether he's really going to stop it, we'll see. But I can't, in good conscience, vote for somebody that just won't tell me the truth and tries to gaslight me out of what really happened. So I think that him hiring a good Surgeon General, him firing a source prosecutor, him wielding his power in Florida tells me that I'd rather roll the dice on him, because I think that he can actually push forward the agenda, and Trump is more just like a good showman. That's at least how I see it.
Because I feel like when it comes down to the whole, and this is my take on this regarding the whole bad hires, because during Trump's presidency, especially in 2020, was one of the first people to call out a lot of these people, many of which are not in favor with him or out of the way. Jared Kushner, for example, hasn't been in the circle since 2021. I think that's a good thing. And there's many people he hired during his presidency that I don't agree with. However, DeSantis in Florida, where it's probably a lot easier to get better people in there statewide, for example, he really hasn't done a better job than Trump, and the people that are propping him up to run against Donald Trump do tend to be some of the worst people in the GOP. And even though, yes, he hired a good Surgeon General, he also did that kind of in like mid to late 2021, from what I understand. I mean, the pandemic was getting close to being over at that point. His first Surgeon General was definitely one of those more establishment types, supported lockdowns, critiqued DeSantis a little bit, even at times, I believe, for being a little bit too lenient. But even then, when it comes down to that, he still listened. He praised Fauci in mid-2020 as well. He locked down the state for several months. He had restrictions in place, I think, all the way to August and September in some capacity, when other Republican governors across the country did not necessarily do that. You have McMaster in South Carolina, Reynolds, I believe, in Iowa. South Dakota didn't even lock down at all, even though Noam, I think, did want to. So I think when it comes down to it, you can look at Trump and point out a lot of these flaws. And I agree that Trump has flaws. His first go-around really wasn't that good. But DeSantis in and of itself, a lot of his accomplishments do tend to be overstated. A lot of them are headlines on media that opposed Donald Trump back in the 2016 primaries for all the wrong reasons. But now they're propping him up, supporting him, every little thing that he does that's remedial, that a lot of other Republican governors have done. That tends to be this big ordeal. And Donald Trump, or Ron DeSantis, gets to take a lot more credit for it than I really think that he honestly deserves at times, because of the fact that a lot of it does tend to be hype. And then you look at who's behind the hype, it's all the same people that opposed Trump in 2016, the donor class, a lot of these politicians. You could point to Lindsey Graham supporting Trump, but most of Trump's endorsements in Congress are the solid individuals. A lot of them are Freedom Caucus. A lot of them are the more America First brand of conservatism, your Andy Biggs, your Gosars, your whoever's. But DeSantis, on the other hand, he might have somebody like An0maly or like a Chip Roy, but even then, it's like that's like the best that he has. And even when it comes to somebody like Chip Roy, he defended Liz Cheney and was like crying crocodile tears for the fact that she was being stripped from her committee. So it's not like his slate of endorsements or the people around him are really all that good. And then a lot of the dissimps, and this is the last thing I'll say in this thing that I'm doing. But all the dissimps, for example, they do tend to be real people, and they do tend to be his top advisors. You know, we may see them as Twitter. Some of them are anonymous accounts. Some of them are people like Christina Pushaw. These people do tend to have a lot of ties to these like open society type of groups that George Soros funds and all sorts of things like that. So it's like, if we're talking about the people in his corner, I just feel as if Donald Trump at this point does have a stronger circle than he had not only in 2020, but also a stronger circle than Ron DeSantis has right now. And I think that if anything, that does kind of increase the appeal to Trump, that, okay, maybe now that he's had pressure put on him by the base, he could go out there and he could maybe get in there and do something different, even if it's not going to be ideal or perfect like we, expected his first term to go.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot there. I'll start with what you were saying with DeSantis. Definitely, I think he got out freedomed by, Kristi Noem, you mentioned. I think Governor Kemp opened up earlier than DeSantis did in certain ways. So I think that's valid criticism. I'm not one of these people that say, oh, he did it perfect. No, he definitely didn't. I listened to DeSantis and Trump speaking at TPUSA last year, and DeSantis was really talking about mandates and what was going on with COVID. He turned after a few months and started kind of being the de facto leader that really was speaking about this a lot. And Trump kind of turned and was like, my vaccine's so amazing, but you have your freedoms and whatever. I'm against mandates. But he was more vaccine sales than talking about mandates. And DeSantis kind of leaned into that. So I think the only reason that DeSantis even got to the point that he got to was because Trump kind of dropped the ball on his leadership there, because he was so obsessed with the vaccine that he helped rush through with socialist money. So I don't think that DeSantis is perfect. I just don't see it as like Trump is this shining idol beacon on the hill versus DeSwampo, and this is the hero. I see them both as very similar with their swamp connections. And with the people around DeSantis, I don't trust the guy. I don't think he's going to be a hero. I like the fact that people don't trust him. I think that that's healthy, that people pay attention. So say if DeSantis hired Mitch McConnell's wife, me, you, everybody would be like, yo, that's not a good hire, right? That's a bad hire. Why would you hire that? But Trump literally hired Mitch McConnell's wife for Secretary of Transportation for 4 years. And this is my big problem with the Republican Party. They cry about Pete Buttigieg because he doesn't deserve that position. I'm sure he just got it for getting out of Biden's way. It was like a hand-me-down, like, get out of our way, we'll let you ride a bicycle or something. But you go back to this is what the right does. They just cry about Pete Buttigieg, but they don't even realize that Trump put Mitch McConnell's wife there. So that's the sort of thing. Is like, it's not that I think that he's so like outside of the system. I just think that Trump kind of sold his base out and can care less and doesn't even have the humility to admit that he did it. Unlike DeSantis, who admits he made a mistake. I just can't trust somebody that won't admit it. And when it comes to all the vaccine stuff, this is something I'm glad you brought me on, because nobody wants to report this. In 2018, Bill Gates and Donald Trump had a meeting, and everybody thinks we're fighting Soros and Bill Gates. And Bill Gates said in that meeting that Trump offered him a White House position, and he told Trump about a universal flu vaccine plan. A year later, after Bill Gates said that to the press, before COVID, Trump passed through, it was called some sort of executive order for rebuilding influenza vaccines. And it had the terminology task force. It brought together 12 branches of government. I mean, it seems like to me that Trump is working with Bill Gates, and Trump took Bill Gates's like suggestions to him and pushed it through executive order. So my argument is not the DeSimp or the DeSantis paid influencer that's going to like drool at the mouth, defending everything he does hypocritically, the same way, I might add, that Trump influencers do the same thing. They have no, thoughts of their own. They just kind of say what he says. I'm not here to say it's this versus this. I think it's very close, but I just think that if DeSantis gets in, people will challenge him. Me and you will be united to say that he shouldn't hire that person. But if Trump gets in, if he hires that person, there's going to be people that say, oh, Trump's hiring the enemy because it's a 3D chess plan. Trump employs the swamp because he has a time machine, or, Trump. It's like a big excuse factory. Now this is the party of no accountability. We're the victim all the time. We're not responsible for anything that happened in 2020. Our whole party sold us out to socialism, communism, and vaccine scams, but it's not Donald Trump's fault because of November. Like we can't even take accountability in our party. So of all those things, I think that it's healthy that people disagree, and Trump has his base under some sort of mind control spell where they can't think critically, have their own opinions, and push back against him. And I think that's dangerous for a movement when the leader is faker than everybody in it, but nobody wants to talk about it.
Because I might push back on that a little bit, because I do think that Trump is somebody that does have good intentions. I don't think he's like this evil mastermind. If he has Bill Gates in there, I think that he in his mind thinks that he's doing something positive. And would he do it now? I don't know. But when it comes down to the whole Trump doesn't listen or his base supports everything he does, Trump, even when it came to the vaccine, he was booed relentlessly at rallies. And then he started to change his tune on it, stopped touting it as an accomplishment nearly as much, if at all, and then started talking about how he's anti-mandate and we have our freedoms and we should stand with the trucker protests in Canada. I think that was the last time that he was booed at it. He changed and he shifted the conversation. So I do think that there is a lot of pushback from the base, even when it comes to him floating the deal where it was the wall with amnesty, which I think that was mainly a bluff, and he told people in Congress to vote against it. His base pushed back on him about it, and then he changed his tune. So I do think that Trump does have a big ego, and I think that that could be a good thing and maybe at times a bad thing. But when it comes down to it, he's not going to grovel at his feet and say, oh, look, I made a mistake, I'm going to do everything differently next time. But he has shifted his tune. He has attacked people like McConnell's wife, and he definitely has changed his mind and tune on several things and stopped promoting things that are going to hurt him electorally. So, I mean, when it comes down to that, I don't think that he's somebody that doesn't learn from his mistakes or he's too stubborn. I mean, he's stubborn, but he just will quietly just shift the conversation instead of groveling at the feet of his base and saying, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Can I use 2 points to kind of point out how I see that? I respect what you're saying. Appreciate your energy too. You seem like a chill guy, even though I disagree with some stuff you say. I'm I like this guy. I know he means well. I could tell. I have good intuition like that. No problem. Trump, I found out because I wasn't really paying attention that much. I was defending him for 3 years against Russia collusion. He's racist. I got, for those who don't know, I've gotten hundreds of millions of views defending Trump, making people like him. I'm not this Trump hater. I'm not Joe Walsh. I'm not crying on MSNBC, fake being a Democrat, Republican. That's not my style. But in general, I found out just through researching, he was bashing Chris Christie in 2016, right? Calling him fat or whatever. He's a slob. He's too corrupt. And then when he got in, he said that Chris Christie was advising him, and that's why he picked Christopher Wray. So this is just my take as a spectator. I kind of see Trump like a WWE character where for his base, he'll be like, he's a clown. I've learned my lesson. But then 3 years later, that's who will choose the FBI director. So I guess the evidence to me is that he's kind of just putting on a show for his base when in reality, he never really stands up to these people. And with the Bill Gates thing, I think it's a good example where I think you're right that they did boo Trump, and that was awesome at a rally. Shout out to those people.
I was at one of them booing him, by the way. I think it was the last time in Conroe last year, Texas.
But you were saying when you're maybe he got fooled by Bill Gates and he meant well and he did it. I wouldn't say that if it were DeSantis. I wouldn't be maybe DeSantis pushed Bill Gates's vaccine agenda through executive order because he made a mistake. That's the type of spell I'm saying that Trump has on people where I understand, say that's true. And Trump is so foolish and so naive and such a weak leader that he allows Bill Gates to dog walk him and do what he wants to do. That's not good leadership. That's weak leadership and that's foolish leadership. So, I look at all of these accounts that make excuses for him and I think to myself, you wouldn't even do that. So it's become a party of people that know better making excuses for a guy that doesn't know better. I don't think you would think the same thing if DeSantis did it. I don't think you would say maybe DeSantis pushed Bill Gates' agenda because he just got fooled. You would never give him that type of compassion and grace. So
no, I wouldn't. And I do think there is a double standard that does exist. And I do think that it is warranted to a certain extent because Trump is somebody who's not entirely from the political system. You know, you look at somebody like DeSantis, he's been in Washington before. He has a voting record at the national level, which really was not all that impressive. I mean, you look at where he stood on things like immigration, foreign policy, like he was murky at best. Like he was in the Freedom Caucus, but he wasn't like one of the solid members of that Freedom Caucus, probably one of the weaker ones. And he's always somebody who's tried to be like an office climber, running for Senate in 2016 when Rubio was running for president, then dropping out, running for governor the first second he could. And now people are saying, you can win, you could beat Trump and you could beat Biden, which polls aren't really in his favor for either right now. But he's running for president. So it kind of follows a similar pattern that a lot of these people like the Bushes follow. You know, he went to Harvard, Yale Law, served in the military as some officer, and then decided to run for political office soon after, and then is climbing the ranks of politics, getting a lot of positive press, getting a lot of connections with a lot of the same establishment Republican uniparty donors. So when it comes down to that, I do believe that you look at him and he's reliant on out-of-state money for his success, whereas Trump is somebody who just has a big enough brand to kind of carry him along. So when he's in there, like a lot of his decisions that he kind of has a little bit more leeway. There's less like direct favors that he does have to return, and he can kind of shake up Washington a little bit more from that front. And if it comes down to something like we saw during his administration, where there were a lot of bumps in the road, I mean, that's probably going to happen again, even if it happens less. I'm well aware that it's not going to be perfect the second time around either. But I think you look at somebody like DeSantis, I think that that's also going to happen at a much higher degree. And at least with Trump, he does energize that movement that he has that could lead to something better than him down the line. I just feel like DeSantis, in a way, is kind of a step back, given a lot of the people that are supporting him and kind of given how much of like a politician he can act like at many times.
So I want to stay on the topic, because with the Trump and Bill Gates thing, it's not that everyone needs to agree, but you admitted that if DeSantis did it, you wouldn't give him the thought process of like maybe he pushed Bill Gates's vaccine agenda. Like for those who are just joining too, in 2018, Bill Gates said to the press, Trump tried to hire me for the White House. I declined. And I told him about a universal flu vaccine thing that he should do. And then a year later, Trump passed that through executive order. The same way he passed the same executive order for, safe spaces against anti-Semitism on college campuses. The same way, by the way, DeSantis did that. I'm not one of these DeSantis did that also. They all do it. And RFK is even groveling over that topic, of course. But anyway, if you would, this is the establishment trap that I see. As a conservative or a patriot, you should care about the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, your freedom, your liberty. With Trump, he has this interesting psychological manipulation over people where it's like, if DeSantis met with Bill Gates and I could prove that DeSantis tried to hire Bill Gates and pass his vaccine agenda through and did it through executive order around Congress, that's corrupt. He's a swamper. He's a rhino, and we need to call that out. But when Trump does it, I don't want to really hold it against him because he's an outsider and he did this. It's like there's a lot of outside things that Trump did, and there's a lot of swampy things that he did. There's no doubting either side of that, but this is the part that really concerns me the most over anything. Obviously, there's policy. Obviously, that there's going to be a primary and someone's going to win. Trump's probably going to win, to be honest. I mean, I see the writing on the wall. I think he's probably going to win the Republican primary, but I feel like he has the base under this amazing spell where all of a sudden people's morals, values, and spine go out the window, because instead of standing for what they believe against Trump, they instead spend their energy making excuses for it or trying to make a hypothetical of why it happened. Like, one thing that's so bad that drives me crazy is Operation Warp Speed on paper without the mandates. I'm not saying Trump mandated it, but on paper, it's a socialist scheme. It's an $18 billion scheme where the federal government handed money to Big Pharma, and then they bought hundreds of millions of doses. The reason they were free doses and the government shoved them down your throat is because they're not free. It's socialism, just like those COVID checks were. And I understand that he had to do it because of COVID, but then I guess we need inflation then, because that's how you get inflation. Long story short, 99% of influencers that like Trump, they don't agree with socialism. They don't agree with the big pharma tyranny. They know that that was a scam from the jump the entire time. And it's socialist even without the mandates, because it's not capitalism. There was no free market. It's all government funded and bought. It was one of the biggest scams in modern history. But Trump influencers will try to be like, well, did you ever consider that it saved the world from a 5 or 6 year lockdown? And it's like, how are you going to fight the establishment when the establishment has you so brainwashed with the false paradigm of red and blue and Trump and DeSantis and Trump and Biden that you're literally willing to make excuses for a socialist scam that you don't even believe in? I follow these people on Instagram. They don't believe in it. They don't like it. But they have to make excuses for it. So to me, the establishment has the Republican Party by the nuts because nobody has any morals, values, or spine when Trump's in the room. They only talk tough to other people. So it's like he's the perfect guy to just, puppet the conservative base in circles like a clown show and get nothing done like the first time happened. There was no big secret plan to arrest Hillary Clinton. His own supporters got arrested because they followed him to a Fed trap at the Capitol. And the deep state and Rachel Maddow and Chrissy Teigen didn't get locked down. It was the entire country that got locked down. And when push came to shove, Trump was on Twitter retweeting John Kerry, bad-mouthing Thomas Massey for being against the CARES Act. Like that's not uniparty. So it's not simply that I think DeSantis is good. I feel like, can you counter what I just said and tell me why I should think that this movement's going to accomplish anything at this rate?
Well, because like I said a little bit earlier, I do think that, I don't know what influencers you're talking about, but there have been many people that have been pushing back, that support Trump, that push back on a lot of what he said about the vaccine, just like they push back on DeSantis praising the vaccine 1,600 times and so on and so on. In terms of the checks, it is something that a lot of people have made excuses for, but it's also something that the base at the time really wanted. And a lot of people are even speculating that Trump didn't win re-election in part because he said that he would forgo another round of checks before the election. So, it really does come down to a lot of factors there, I guess I would assume. But I don't think that DeSantis would really do a whole lot different because he sent $450 stimulus checks to Floridians, I think, for inflation, so he could own the libs or something like that. I don't know. But that's kind of my take on that. I do believe that it is a problem that people will not hold their leaders accountable. You have people in the Trump camp who probably will make excuses for everything Trump does. A lot of DeSantis's supporters, at least online, a far greater percentage of them from what I've seen, will let DeSantis slide and get away with everything. So I do believe with Trump, actually, there is more direct accountability, because even if people do get mad at DeSantis and do try to hold him accountable, he's in D.C. He doesn't really care as much about what his base thinks compared to Trump, where he sees all of his replies, and if he sees people that like him not exactly being on board, he's going to try to do what he can to placate them more so than somebody who's been a career member of the Republican establishment. So,
yeah, I guess with the cabinet, because I wish that DeSantis and Trump had to say who their cabinet was, because that's going to show who their administration is. Last time, obviously, we had Pompeo, we had Christopher Wray, we had Mitch McConnell's wife, we had a bunch of pharmacy lobbyists, we had losers like Jerome Adams. There were a few winners in there, but I think even most Trump supporters would agree that most of his cabinet was really garbage. Pretty bad. So I guess, do you think if Trump won the nominee and Trump beat Biden, do you think once Trump started picking his cabinet, if he picked bad people, this is kind of my perception, just based on the, I would say, fanfare around Trump. It's like anime, like Comic-Con sort of like fan base, where it's like if DeSantis hired 7 terrible people, me, you, and everyone would be like, yo, that's not it, bro. That's Rhino, that's Swamp. But when Trump does it, I swear, and it's not just the QAnon type people, who honestly, some of the things they're saying are true, but it's like they're taking every conspiracy ever and just scrambling them and then confusing themselves. But I'm not knocking conspiracy theories. A lot of them are obviously true. But in general, it's like, it's not just the Q people. It's also the Trump influencers who swallow Mar-a-Lago steaks and then, have nothing to say about anything. They're willing to play along and be like, he's got to keep his enemies close. And it's that whole vibe where I almost feel like Trump neutralizes the conservative base. Like if Hillary were in office and they tried to lock the country down, everyone would be like, hell no. But when it's Trump, it's like, well, it's got to be 15 days. Then Trump's on Twitter saying, oh, Sweden should stay locked down. And I remember like Jack Posobiec and I'm trying to think James Woods were like, yeah, Sweden should lock. Like they were retweeting Trump. You could find my Twitter account. I could print stuff for you that people think is prophetic because I saw this coming before the lockdown. And it's not prophetic. I could lie like the Q people and say I have a secret ball. I don't. I'm just looking at the facts and I'm not emotional and I'm not so bought into Trump and I don't hate Trump so much that I can't blind myself like a leftist or right. So I was on Twitter saying, dude, Sweden is smart for staying open. This is communist propaganda saying that we should stay locked down. So I've already seen this play out where it went full socialist, full communist, and people just do whatever he says and they have no thoughts of their own. Will people actually stand up to a bad cabinet of Trump, or will the base just cheer and make excuses for it?
Well, I think that, like I said, I think that there's a lot of people. I will call out things that he does. There were endorsements he made in 2022 that I was very critical of. And even now, if he says something that I happen to disagree with, that, yeah, I'm going to call him out on it if I see fit. However, when it comes down to the cabinet, like, I agree, it should be transparent. He should say who he's going to pick. And I think that there will be a little bit more blowback now, more so than there was back then, because now we know who the enemies within Washington are, because we saw it, play out for 4 years. But with Ron DeSantis, he will make his picks, and the people around him, for example, you talk about the influencers at Mar-a-Lago. Yeah, maybe they're going to just be going along with whatever he says. I don't think they should. I think they should call it out where they see fit. The dinner parties with DeSantis's people, those are the people that are making the cabinet picks usually, and those are the members of the establishment, and they're not going to be picking good people that are going to really go out there and drain the swamp. You might get like some influencer who talks like about the woke stuff and Secretary of Education, for example, but at the national level, that position is relatively kind of useless anyways, and I don't even think that the department should even exist. So I mean, it does come down to this dichotomy, but if it's Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis, because that's what it's going to come down to, I feel as if you have a better shot with Donald Trump, because he's already changing his platform. He's got his Agenda 47. He's already making better decisions overall with his campaign than he made in 2020. And in some ways, the messaging, even if the energy, we could argue, is not where it was, the messaging is pretty comparable, if not even better at times, to his original run back in 2016. So that's the way I see it. I think people should hold Trump accountable. I think people should hold DeSantis accountable. And from what I've seen, a lot of people are holding Trump accountable more so than DeSantis if you talk about those core influencers from each group. And that's the way that I see it. And maybe we're on different sides of social media where we see it a little bit differently, but if you have like a rebuttal to that or like specific like recent examples, I'd like to hear that.
Yeah, a few things. First of all, I like you as a person, and I think from somebody that is looking at both sides, thinking people are acting like children, do you agree with me? And I'm not saying specifically you, but I think everybody can get caught into it sometimes, that the DeSantis people are so in the bag for DeSantis that they are being annoying. They are being fake. Yeah. I'm telling you, I have tweets that I printed out. All the stuff they're saying now, and it's not a competition, but they weren't saying it when it mattered. So as somebody that actually believes what they're saying, I'm wondering where was Dave Rubin doing this in 2020? I don't know. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. But I feel like one of the issues is, and it's not just for people who think I'm just complaining about Trump supporters, that people that are in the bag for DeSantis are so in the bag that they're just being fake. They're now becoming what they hate. They have double standards. They're hypocrites. They'll complain about something that Trump does, but not even admit that DeSantis also does it. And I hope that you would admit that there's a lot of Trump influencers doing the same thing, where it's like they're so desperate to just fight the other side, and they're so desperate to just defend him that they don't even realize that they're opening themselves up to standards that they can't even kind of live up to. Is that fair?
I mean, yeah, sometimes, everybody does get caught up in the fight. And it is also true that a lot of the people on the other side are just so insufferable to the point where you do kind of have like this Pavlovian defense mechanism to just oppose literally everything that they say. But when it comes down to it, like I said, I do believe that the intentions are there that are more subversive and more evil on that side, given who's exactly behind them, who's funding them, and the fact that they've laid out the bait for DeSantis and he's just taken it. Meanwhile, with Trump, it's like I said, it hasn't entirely been perfect, but then again, I do believe that he does have more genuine intentions, and that's kind of my take on that.
From someone annoyed at both sides, I think although there are some really annoying fake DeSantis influencers, I see them as well. The reason the Trump side annoys me more, as somebody that's not that side or that side, just talking objectively, when I say things that are true, people freak out at me because they just assume that I'm in that camp, because that they've become like robots of like, they only have 5 phrases. You're a traitor. You're a rhino. Just listen to what I'm saying. For example, I agree with you that I don't trust DeSantis to make 100% good choices, because here's the little spoiler alert for everybody who doesn't know already. The donors control a lot. They're not giving $1 million or $10 million or $100 million. They're not doing it because they're nice people and they're trying to help build the school in Africa. They're doing it because they want to control policy, whether it's big pharma, whether it's funding a foreign country, whether it's starting a war. The reason that people give a lot of money to Trump, DeSantis, Biden is so they can control them. And if you look at things like big pharma, they pay both sides of the equation. That's why they get what they want, no matter if Biden or Trump wins. So I agree with you that everybody should have an eye on DeSantis's donors and the fact that he's taking donor money, and should be very skeptical of the decisions he makes. And this is why people can't just fall for the charisma of Trump and DeSantis, is because that's what they are. They're professional middlemen. They're car salesmen. They're the ones to take the meetings, to talk to the people, and basically play the middleman to convince you with their charisma that they're so much for you, while they're really working for big pharma, or they're really working for a foreign country, or they're really working for the military industrial complex. That's what politics is. So on that note, I'm not one of these other influencers that just, slobbers over DeSantis' shoes. I'll admit, you shouldn't completely trust him, and you should look at how much donor money he's getting, because there's a reason they're giving it to him. With that being said, when Trump ran for office, he ran on this amazing concept that he would never take anyone's money, right? I'm so rich. It was awesome. I'm rich. I don't need your money. He called Marco Rubio Sheldon Adelson's perfect little puppet, because he said Sheldon Adelson, who's passed now, rest in peace, was going to turn Rubio into a puppet with his money. Trump ended up taking the money from Sheldon Adelson. In fact, he took so much money, they broke even some George Soros campaign records. I'm not saying George Soros doesn't influence a lot. He does, but Sheldon Adelson is giving that much money to the right, where he's giving even more money than Soros in some political campaigns, and Trump and the GOP took hundreds of millions of dollars from him. So all I'm asking for from the Trump side, I'm not asking you to like John Cardillo or Dave Rubin. You could fight with them all year if you want. I don't see the point. But it's like, if you're willing to say that donors can control DeSantis, donors already did control Trump. And the reason that his term didn't end up how we wanted it to is because he didn't even really try. So the only way I think he's going to try is if people realize what's really going on. But when the base just says, well, DeSantis takes donor money and Trump, that's why Trump's an outsider. Trump took hundreds of millions of dollars from Sheldon Adelson. He took $1 million from Pfizer. He took money from Bank of America. His 2016 inauguration, he took more corporate money from Obama. And as soon as he took the pharma money, he stopped talking to RFK Jr. and he hired a Eli Lilly pharmacy lobbyist. These are the facts, folks. And that's all I'm asking for, is don't get so blinded by your idol worship of a guy to realize that he's also taking donor money, or not realize that.
No, I know he's still taking donor money. First of all, I just want to say one thing. I don't think that DeSantis really has enough charisma to really draw people in and fool them. I know you mentioned charisma earlier, but I mean, just seeing him speak. Well, in a way, you could make that argument, but I don't believe that it would really help him, like electorally, for example. But when it comes down to the whole donor money thing, like, that is true. Trump did take donor money. He hung out with a lot of people in Washington who I don't believe that he should have hung out with. And I think there's a lot of legitimate criticism there. But when it comes down to the whole like big pharma thing, Trump at least did try to sort of tackle prescription drug prices, bring them down, try to at least, start working on like making an opioid that's a lot less addictive, to the point where it's like, okay, so we're not going to have this crisis that we have that's going to be hollowing out middle America and affecting them. So I do believe that at least here and there, he did try a little bit more. I don't believe that it was all perfect or ideal, but the fact that you have somebody that's at least kind of moving the ball in that direction is still a net positive, compared to somebody like DeSantis, who will tell people, and I know Trump took donor money and has done events like that. He gets a lot of criticism from those people for it. But DeSantis recently, he does fundraisers with Moderna executives, and they try to keep that under wraps, and then it gets leaked. And it just shows that there's a big, private and public decision that he has on certain things and that he makes that is different. And that the change in position is what Hillary Clinton was under fire for a lot back in 2016, and he's been caught doing this on multiple occasions to the point where it's like, okay, now we know we can't trust this guy whatsoever. And then Trump is somebody who will mess up, but he's more like the guy that we already know. He was in there for 4 years already, did some good things, didn't do enough good things, maybe did some not so good things along the way, some of which that he has said that he would reverse in his platform. For example, things like the First Step Act, which DeSantis voted for the first iteration of, but now said he would go out there and just tackle it and be tough on crime, despite the fact that he probably would have likely voted for the second part of it if he was in Congress. So when it comes down to it, it's basically like you have Trump, and he's there. There are pros to him. Yes, there's some cons. And then you have this concerted effort to go out there and get rid of him. They're not going to get rid of him because, Trump was cozying up to the donors with Big Pharma, because these people do the same thing. They want to get rid of Trump because there are good elements to Trump, and there were some good elements to Trump's presidency as well. And they want to get those elements out of the Republican Party, so they could return back to the days of old, the days of usual, the days of 2004, the uniparty, we take turns screwing over the American people. And even though Trump did cave into that, as we've both mentioned during this stream, it does really seem as if he's still enough of a threat. Otherwise, I feel like they would be a lot more behind him right now, and they'd want to be able to, get him in there again. And I don't really see that concerted effort, because they're still going out there. They're trying to throw him in prison. And I mean, DeSantis might go out there and say, this is a miscarriage of justice on the campaign trail for political points. But behind the scenes, a lot of people are saying his campaign wants Trump to be behind bars so he would have a much better shot, because he knows that he's really struggling in the polls right now and probably is not going to beat him. So
yeah, valid points. A few things. I want to take it back to the emails that they told people not to read in 2016. I think the news said that you should get Chris Cuomo to read them for you, the Julian Assange emails. But in that, they had a Pied Piper strategy where they admitted that they felt like they wanted to elevate Ben Carson, Donald Trump, and people that they considered maybe less likely to run. So one thing I want to say is this. I'm going to go over all the options that I'm sure people have already thought of, but I see a lot of influencers like they don't even realize that this is helping Trump win the election. They don't even realize that this is going to guarantee him the primary. They don't even realize that it's helping him raise this much fundraising. They absolutely do know exactly what they're doing. They've already done it. It's not like we already have the evidence that they do run this strategy to elevate the candidate that they don't want. So this idea that Republicans think that they have this secret that the Democrats haven't figured out, they've thought about it 1,000 times. There's a few options. Either they're purposely elevating Trump because they think he's the easiest person to beat again, or, they really do want to arrest him and they're really using their executive power to get him in jail, which is something that he ran on in 2016, didn't do. And now he's running on it again. He's running I'm going to get a special prosecutor for Biden. And everyone's like, yeah, you can find that same article from 2016. So it's not, it doesn't mean that much now, but I don't think they don't know that. So I find that part of it interesting. With the Moderna lobbying stuff, that's very smart and keen to be like, if he's meeting with a Moderna lobbyist, that's a little weird, and I want to get to the bottom of it. But that's the sort of thing with Trump. When he does the same thing, it's like, well, he's our guy, and he's going to sell us out too, but he's going to do it with a MAGA hat on, and at least we can hang out with our friends. That's the type of vibe where it almost starts to feel like they're trying to neutralize our base. I have a book here. I don't know if it's here. I'll hold it up. This is not. I just have a bookshelf. This is called New Lies for the Old, An0maly Golitsyn, okay? This is a communist defector. In it, there's a controlled opposition strategy called Operation Trust, okay? It sounds exactly like Trust the Plan, where during communism, while communists were taking over both parties, they started telling conservatives and patriots and people who weren't for communism, you don't have to do anything, just trust that there's military generals doing it for you behind the scenes. This is real. This is true published history, that's how they neutralize people against communism, by telling them to trust that generals are going to do it for them. Does that sound familiar? Sounds exactly like what tens of millions of people are doing, rallying around Donald Trump. Not every Trump supporter's like that, and I'm not suggesting that, but it is a thing and we all know it. So this is the kind of thing that I'm thinking is this is already a known, and I'm not saying he is controlled opposition or this in the same way, but it's not always purposeful in the sense of if there's someone who can neutralize the base, like he meets with lobbyists, that's corruption. He meets with lobbyists, that's our guy. He sells out, that's a sellout. He sells out, he's our guy, and anybody who calls out his selling out is a bad person. All of my reporting from 2020, if that were Mitt Romney doing everything Trump did, everybody would call me a hero. If that were Hillary Clinton doing what Trump did and I said the same thing, everyone would say, great job. If DeSantis were in office doing those same things and I said it, everyone does a great job. People only get mad at me because they like Donald Trump so much. They've built this idea that he must be right about everything. He must have a reason for every corruption things he does or corrupt thing he does. And anybody who speaks out against it is the problem. I just want to show you real quick this tweet from this is before the lockdown, okay? They're going to use this to push medical tyranny. They didn't even announce a vaccine at that point. Mandated vaccines, government mandated lockdowns, authoritarian power grabs, even bigger speech censorship. Life will never be the same, and Trump doesn't have a magic plan to save you till the end of time. I said that before they locked America down with 15 days to slow the spread. You could check the date. That's still up there. I'm not saying this to brag. I'm just telling you, when I tweeted this, you know who got mad at me? It wasn't the liberals, even though all this ended up being true. It was Trump supporters. It was people that like Trump so much that they hated that I said that he doesn't have a plan. Why did I say that? To be pessimistic? No, because I know that citizens matter. The conservative base matters. Republicans matter. When they boycott something, it matters. You matter. You're not just an NPC to follow Trump or DeSantis. We have a movement here. But if our movement is so obsessed with one guy that they turn their brains off for a month, 2 months, a year, 2 years, 4 years, then the whole movement just becomes useless and neutralized. So, just like what I'm saying now is unpopular, you wouldn't believe how unpopular this was. And now people try to say, oh, you're prophetic. I could lie to you like a bunch of these Q decoders who just sell their base like Ponzi schemes. But I'll tell you, I'm not prophetic. The reason I found this stuff, I'm not special. I just did the research. I don't have emotions. And I knew what was going on based on researching and being honest with myself. But you can't get to that point if you are so invested in one character in this political circus. And Trump is a character and DeSantis is a character, but it can't be looked at as one is our shining hero and the other one's the swamp. They both are.
Well, I don't necessarily disagree that Trump is like this hero that's going to save the country or was going to stop, all this stuff from happening. I don't think that I've made that argument. If people are making that argument, I think that they're a little bit naive. I think that this is a lot bigger than just one man, obviously. It's a lot bigger than Donald Trump himself, even though I still believe that if you're comparing Trump to DeSantis, Donald Trump is the biggest threat to the system, comparatively speaking, that you could put up there that's a viable candidate that would go out there, be president, and at least try to mitigate whatever he could. Because he's also very vindictive, and that we know. I'm sure you wouldn't disagree with that. And the fact is, now that they've been trying to put him in prison, unless it's some grand conspiracy where he's a part of this whole entire plot to just play a character, which again, hasn't really been enough evidence of that I've seen. But he probably will go in there, go at these people harder than he did the first time. That doesn't mean it's going to be perfect again. That doesn't mean he's necessarily going to get fooled again, because he very well could. But if you put in somebody like Ron DeSantis, who's been a career politician, who's been a part of the system for quite some time, he's not exactly going to be held accountable. And the movement of people that will hold these politicians accountable, that was created and inspired in part by Donald Trump, and maybe you could say before that you had the Tea Party, it's probably going to diminish greatly if you do have DeSantis as president, if he would even get in. But I don't really personally think he'd win a general election, but I think that that's kind of a discussion for another time. But when it comes down to the whole Trump versus DeSantis thing, it's either, okay, you have this guy, we saw him in there for 4 years, wasn't entirely perfect, and yeah, some people might not hold him accountable, but then you have on the other side Mitt Romney with a new software update, talks about the woke stuff, touts and overrates his own record regarding the whole virus back in 2020, and you put him up there, you're not exactly going to be better off. And I don't necessarily believe that a lot of people are going to be out there holding him accountable and then everybody's just going to let Trump just run free and do whatever. A lot of the people that are, just gonna say, oh, Trump is great on everything, whatever. A lot of those people are now the DeSantis influencers too, like the Jen Ellis's, the what's his face, Bill Mitchell, can't stand that guy. But you look at those people and it's like, okay, a lot of those people that have that tendency not to hold Trump accountable, they're probably just going to go along with whatever DeSantis says. And some people might just drop out of politics entirely if that's the case. So if that's what you're looking at, it's like, okay, you have one imperfect choice and then you have another imperfect choice. But the other imperfect choice is a sure thing that you know is not really going to end up that well and probably worse than what we saw from 2017 to 2021. And if you're saying the second choice is better than the first, I mean, I disagree with that. That's kind of my take on it.
Well, first thing about Bill Mitchell, God bless the guy, but I feel like, his issue, I'm younger than him, but a word of advice from someone who doesn't hate you, Bill, you were on Trump's nuts like heavily for years, and now you're on DeSantis's nuts. Try to just, instead of
get
going
off the nuts. Yeah.
yeah, just like, chill out for a week and like DeSantis if you want, but you don't got to go so hard, because he was like hard on Trump. Now he's hard on DeSantis.
I mean, he just defends Trump on everything. I mean, like even the bump stock ban, the COVID stuff, he was all for Trump on that. Now Trump was the worst president ever the second he probably gets a paycheck. But
I don't think he's a bad guy, but I feel like he comes off super fake because, yeah, he's just too obsessed with the character of people. You don't got to be that obsessed with either one, Bill. Calm down, my guy. You seem like a nice guy, but it's too much, bro. And it is coming off rather in non-genuine. When it comes to the base without Trump, this is something I've thought of for a while, because let's be clear, Trump deserves a lot of credit for what he did. He played a role at a time. He became really a spearhead against the media. He woke a lot of people up, especially boomers, with that. He didn't wake me up from media deception, but I liked him because he said that. So that drew me towards conservative values, because he sounded kind of like Alex Jones. And I was like, I always liked Alex. I didn't even know he was conservative or whatever. I'm more like just going off of instinct. I like Ron Paul. I didn't know he was libertarian. I just could tell he was the real one. So Trump does deserve a lot of credit, but this is where we're kind of at a crossroads. There's certain UFC fighters I love, right? But then at a certain point, they're not the champion anymore, and it's like their time has passed. Trump is not only the leader of his movement, he's kind of become the spearhead of the Tea Party movement, the Ron Paul movement. Of course, there's libertarians, but they don't even get 2% of the vote. So the smart ones are conservative at this point, like Thomas Massie and Rand Paul. He's got the truther movement. Even people like Alex Jones are behind him. So Trump is kind of standing and taking like 17 different movements, and he's the leader of them. And it's become kind of like an excuse movement now, because he's not really saying and doing a lot of stuff people want him to do. So that's kind of my thought as well, is like, I don't think that the base is powerless without him. If he deserves to be there, he'll be there. That's for like life to decide and God to decide. But this idea that our base can't do anything, you see with these boycotts, no offense, he seems like a nice guy too, but Don Jr. was like, and Caitlyn Jenner were like, oh, lay off
they were
boycotts.
wrong for that.
So it's like our base is actually doing something, and they're doing more to tell us to lay off than they are to push forward. And I always said that I never drink Bud Light because it tastes like piss, but if people want to stop drinking it now, that's on you. But I don't think our movement can't do anything without him. It's like either he's going to use the movement and push it in the right direction. I almost kind of see Trump as this character of just kind of running people in circles aimlessly. So he's like taking all of these great movements and not doing anything with the energy. And then I'll pass it back with the, like, I don't see the evidence for it being a clown show. I'm not saying he's completely in on it completely, because I don't know. And I don't like to speak on things I don't know. But when I saw that he badmouthed Chris Christie the same way he's doing now, all 2016, and I liked it. And then I saw his interview with Hannity where he said that Chris Christie told me to pick the FBI director, and I listened to his advice. I mean, I see how he talks about Gavin Newsom. I'm not making the stance that DeSantis is 100% amazing. He's my hero. I'm not Bill Mitchell. I don't run aimlessly like a chicken with my head cut off into the hands of another politician to get scammed again. I'm just saying objectively, it's like there is a lot of evidence there that Trump is like, a character more than he really is a conservative leader. And I would argue that I feel like DeSantis seems like a little more passionate about a lot of conservative topics, where when I hear Trump speak, I think he likes America. He wants to stop the wars, but I don't think he has much conviction on the First or Second Amendment. I don't think he has much conviction on pro-life. I don't think he has much conviction on the kids' school stuff. Like, I don't think he actually cares as much as people think he cares. That's just my view of the whole thing.
Okay. And when it comes down to the other issues, because we talked a lot about, COVID, we talked a lot about big pharma on the stream. There's a lot of things that we didn't talk about that I do believe that Trump would be better on than DeSantis. You mentioned foreign policy. You agreed with foreign policy. That's another big
Huge.
area where you do have a lot of donor money that Donald Trump sort of was a lot more effective at standing up to, wanted to have good relationships with the adversarial leaders overseas. You saw Putin. You saw, Xi with China to an extent. You saw Kim Jong-un. That was a big breakthrough. Now they're upset at him over it, which is absolutely ridiculous. And also you have other things like immigration, which again, wasn't entirely perfect. We didn't get the full wall, but you did see, legal immigration rates drop 50%. You saw him mitigate the border crisis that we had very effectively with Remain in Mexico. Biden gets in there, and now we have this massive border crisis on our hands because he rescinded it and just doesn't care about the border because he wants more immigration, lowers wages. That comes into play with his donors. And then also on top of that, you have the fact that these people, they give them amnesty, they'll be Democrat voters for life. That's what they're really trying to do. So there's also a lot of other issues where.
Can we talk about immigration real quick?
Yeah, we can.
I think DeSantis will do a better job on immigration. That's just as a voter. I saw what Trump did. He did some things. I think he kind of I just don't think he has the conviction to really, go hard at illegal immigrants. He says it, he talks about it, he kind of runs in circles. I feel like DeSantis will wield that executive power and actually get that done.
Is there a reason why, other than the fact that he shipped, a couple dozen illegals further into the country, which he kind of, stole that from Greg Abbott here in Texas, but.
Yeah. The reason I think he's going to do it is because I watch how he kind of wields power, and every Monday he'll do something new. He'll ban central bank digital currency. He'll do this. And that seems like it's his strategy. It's like every Monday I'm going to do something. I'm going to push it. I'm going to sign it. I'm going to get it through. I'm going to talk about it one time, and then I'm going to move on to the next topic. And he's done stuff that I think is not good, but I see it and he moves on. With Trump, I feel like it's like this. Really, I feel like it's Tom and Jerry. Like in the show Tom and Jerry, the cat's always chasing the mouse, and it never happens. And you're always so close, but if it ever happens, the show ends, so it never happens. That's kind of how I feel with Trump. I feel like he's good at talking about it, throwing his hands up. Where I don't see this big 20-year spectacle over it. It's like DeSantis. I feel like just based off the evidence I've seen of how he wields power and how Trump wields power. Trump's more of I hired the wrong person and I'm going to complain about it 1,000 times, take no accountability, and tell people that I'm the victim of someone I hired. He's complained about Bill Barr 100 times. It's pathetic. Just say, Bill Barr isn't who I thought he was. I made the wrong decision. I'll make the right decision the next time. That's what an adult would say. So I don't see it in his leadership to think that he's actually going to get it done. That's how I see it.
But wouldn't lamenting a lot of these bad hires and complaining about them kind of indicate that he would not want to hire them again, or that he would want to put somebody different in there next time? Because that's more of the way I see it. Because like I said, I don't think he's the type of guy to apologize or say that he did something wrong. But if he was that type of guy, I don't think he would have necessarily gotten as further, politically as he currently has if he had that mentality.
No, I don't think he's learned a single thing. To me, I understand if you don't like Bill Barr or Christopher Wray or whatever, but even on Christopher Wray, I mean, Hannity asked him, why did you hire him? His literal answer was, well, Chris Christie told me to, and the Democrats liked him. There's no oh, dude, I really made a mistake there. You listen to DeSantis or Thomas Massie or any of these people on COVID, they could tell you, look you in the eyes and tell you the truth about the money printing and the mistakes that were made even by themselves. Trump doesn't do that. So I don't think complaining about Bill Barr 100 times and taking no accountability for not choosing the right person, to me, that shows no signs of learning. It seems like that's what I'm saying with the clown show. It's always oh my gosh, I can't believe it's bro, one truth. I hired Bill Barr. That's my bad. He couldn't have got there without me. I put him there. Next time I get there, here's who I'm going to put there. I almost feel like it's purposeful, to be honest. I feel like he's just wasting conservatives' time. I think it's this big show, and he just everyone's just running around, freaking out all the time, but nothing ever gets done. And I'm kind of just sitting here, just eating my popcorn, being man, when are people going to snap out of this?
And do you think that like if he's gonna go, because Trump went up there, he said like he has said that he hired a lot of bad people like multiple times. Wouldn't that kind of sort of put a dent in your point you made about how he like hasn't learned his lesson if he's agreeing that he's made bad hires though?
But after he hired bad people the last time, he just kept hiring bad people. So I guess my thought is this. RFK came out, he talks about pharma real quick. Trump comes out now and he says, like, basically just copy and paste the platform. That's fine. I like that they're pushing each other towards greatness, right? That's what it should be. But my thought is, like, he's never admitted that Alex Azar was a bad hire. That's one of the worst hires. He put a pharmacy lobbyist above Fauci. Everybody talks about Fauci, like even the dissents, they'll be like, Fauci, Fauci, Fauci. That's all they talk about. Above Fauci is the NIAID. That's what he, and then above that is, I'm sorry, the NIH, and then it's the HHS. So I don't know. I haven't heard who's he gonna put. I can't even name 5 people that I like around Trump. Like who's he gonna hire? I don't see it. I think it's nice that he realizes that they weren't the right choices, but I haven't heard a single like viable person that he's like, this is who I'm gonna hire. It's just like a constant like, and then people say I'm complaining. I'm not. I'm just analyzing. He's always playing the victim of things that he got himself into. Yeah, I like that he's admitting that he made a mistake, but it seems more like showy to me than it does like I've learned my lesson. I'm gonna pick the right person.
Well, you're talking about picking the right people because let's say, because he's pretty much going to get the nomination at this point. You've agreed that he's more likely to win it than not, even if he might not be your first choice.
He's the favorite.
And yeah,
Betting
he's the favorite. And maybe, I don't want to jump and rush to a conclusion, but he very well could go out there, defeat Biden, get another term. So then he would have to build a cabinet. Who exactly in general should be in those roles in Washington? Because it does seem, and I'm not trying to make excuses for Donald Trump here, because it doesn't matter who you have in there as president making these decisions. Who can he put in these slots that would be solid, but also be able to get through in the Senate?
Right.
I mean, it seems like Republicans will have around 52 seats, give or take, given the map, if Trump were to win and get in there. But who could he exactly even put in that you'd like to see, or any president would put in that you'd like to see for these positions? Because it seems like it's also partially because we have this massive talent drought there, more so than anything else, that putting together a solid cabinet is a very difficult thing to do. We could say, oh, we could have better chief of staff. He could have better advisors around him because you don't have to get those confirmed. And there are a lot of good people ideologically that could be in those roles, and he could do a lot better this time around. But for the cabinet secretaries, like state, health and human services, as you mentioned, is an important one for, tackling big pharma. Who would be in those positions that you would say would be solid?
Yeah, so for HHS and FDA, these are huge ones. And even if you hate everything I've ever said, I'm talking to your audience. Some people,
Yeah.
I'm sure, like it. Listen to what I'm about to say because it's more important than a lot of stuff I've said. The food that they're feeding us in America, obesity rates through the roof. Obviously, people are dying from fentanyl, opioids. We all see it. It's not just because people are eating too much. The food quality in America is insane. They're feeding us like the craziest stuff that they don't even allow in Europe and third world countries. So no one cares about this stuff. RFK talks about it a little bit, but it's never going to change because it's not an issue that matters to voters. It's like people are concerned about other stuff. So I think whether it's Biden, Obama, Trump, they just put in pharmacy lobbyists and a bunch of compromised people, and no one really cares. But I think people should care because when you talk about the economy, foreign policy, there was no bigger hit to America than 2020 when we really just gutted our own economy for a virus. So it is an important issue. If they're able to upend our entire way of life, our freedoms, and our economy over this health stuff, it's worth looking at. So I think you just can't put a pharma lobbyist or an executive there. And I think the reason they do it, and people are going to perceive this as hating, but I'm not even saying that DeSantis is necessarily above it if he doesn't execute on this, but they all do it because they all take money. The same way DeSantis takes money, Trump took $1 million from Pfizer. And you might say that's not that much money. Well, then why did he take it? He took it because you don't just do $1 million for nothing. He ended up hiring a lobbyist for a top position. So we, the base, we, the people, the left is useless. It sucks because now half the country is just like wearing masks and yelling at walls. It would be nice to have some critical thinkers over there like Russell Brand, but we, the people, need to say whoever gets into office, we will not allow another lobbyist to run FDA and HHS. So, to point back to DeSantis, just because this is the only example I could think of in the whole country, he hired somebody that was against big pharma as Surgeon General. It's probably the only one in the country that actually isn't just another shill. So how to do that? I think you have to not take money. I think the media is going to hate you, obviously, but the media already hates Trump, so it's not like he has to worry about that. So HHS and FDA, to answer the question, somebody that's not compromised by big pharma. If you put pharma at the top of the health thing, we're screwed. They screwed us so hard in 2020, and they're screwing us now. We got to get them out of those positions. When it comes to Secretary of State, somebody that is really in line with Trump's agenda. Pompeo in some ways was okay. In other ways, I don't really like him or trust him in that sense. But someone that aligns with, Trump's anti-war policy, that loves America more than foreign countries, including the country that they call you anti-Semitic. If you talk about, it's like, I love America. They're like, you're anti-Semitic. I never said I dislike that country. I'm just American. I think about America's values first, just like Israel's politicians should think about theirs first. It's not a hateful thing. It's just the truth. Other cabinet positions like Secretary of Transportation, I don't know, not Mitch McConnell's wife, maybe put Thomas Massey somewhere in the FDA department, or in, someone like a Rand Paul. These are the type of people I would like to see near the Fed. I don't know if that's possible, but the Rand Pauls, the Thomas Masseys, the authentic, genuine people in Congress, that would be ideal to me. Because the truth is, whether Trump wins or DeSantis wins, if they keep hiring the swamp for their cabinet, it doesn't matter what Trump says. It doesn't matter what anyone says. We're just going to be like Charlie Brown with the football, and then they're going to pull up the football, and every 4 years we're going to like swing and miss, and the left's going to start a race riot to get votes. And, I'm just tired of the cycle.
So you don't really have like a lot of names that you'd like to see at those positions. You just have like the idea of what you'd like to see there, because I just feel like,
you want like names. So RFK Jr. I would like at the FDA, maybe like Thomas Massey over there, Rand Paul, head of the HHS. Those are specific names.
So in terms of the RFK Jr. presidency, is there like a reason why do you like support him in that primary, or would you rather have DeSantis or him? Because it seems like you tend to care a lot about those, the COVID issue. You care a lot about tackling big pharma. Seems like that's right. What RFK Jr., even though in his closet there's also some things that I've found recently about that, but it does seem like he, at least campaign-wise, is talking about those things. Would you rather have him as president over DeSantis or Trump, or what's the deal there?
I would say at this point, I want him to beat Joe Biden. I think that would be healthy for the country. But with with RFK and the stuff that he says, he's just bringing a lot of interesting points. But before that, real quick, a lot of people are saying, I don't care about COVID anymore. It's already passed. Like, nobody cares about that. I only care about the economy. The reason the economy is so crappy is because of COVID. So you can't care about the economy and be like, I'm going to vote for Trump because the economy sucks, and that's all I care about. The reason the economy sucks is because of Trump and Biden. Biden is doing a terrible job, but Republicans printed more money than Obama in 2020, and they don't care. Tim Scott doesn't care. Trump doesn't care. So that's how I feel like the right keeps getting bamboozled. Trump's better than Biden. I'd vote for Trump over Biden 1,000 times. I'm not one of these, I'm sitting out. No, I'll vote for Trump. But he did help cause the inflation, and that's the truth. So you can't say I don't care about this, but I care about the inflation, when you're running into the hands of the guy who printed all the money. So it's a huge, huge issue to me. RFK is authentic and genuine. And I think this is the big mistake, at least for my vote, that Trump's making. Luckily, with the help of the Democrats, I think he's up in the polls because they're like, putting on a spectacle for everybody. But in general, I really do think that this campaign, RFK is being very genuine and authentic, and he's saying a lot of outside the box things about how Monsanto works and all these really important things. DeSantis is telling the truth about a lot of stuff. Trump used to be my favorite person because he used to just tell the truth about everything all the time. 2017, 2018, all I'm doing is covering Trump because he's the funniest one, the realest one. Everything he's saying is right. So I don't have to really say much. He's just saying the truth. Now, Trump reminds me of like a Democrat boomer. He's like, Florida, the COVID cases are, there's COVID deaths. And it's like, bro, that's your narrative. So that's why I tend to share RFK and DeSantis stuff more. they're giving me more gems. And Trump's like a grandpa saying the same 6 things on loop. I think kind of conditioning people to not think outside the box. So I see the flaws in RFK. I'm not like running to vote for him, but I hope he beats Biden. I would like DeSantis over Trump at this very moment. But yeah, I don't think he's like a hero either. People should really look into the Democrat stuff that he believes. That's not what we believe. So, but this is my point real quick. Sorry to run on with it. Can somebody make Trump be authentic and just be like raw again? Because this new vibe of him, like, I don't know. There's nothing really for me there. I'd rather like watch RFK talk than Trump at this point.
Well, I wouldn't want to watch RFK talk because his voice is kind of a little bit raspy. I know it's not his fault, but it is kind of a problem and would definitely like hurt him in an election. I guarantee it. But I feel like when it comes to Trump's authenticity, like he still can have it off the cuff. I mean, we saw it in the town hall with CNN. He was not exactly being repetitive. I mean, they asked him a lot of questions about repetitive things that he, would go out there and like be critiqued for talking about a lot. But other than that, I mean, like I would say that he did a pretty good job. He was relatively authentic, and he can be off the cuff despite being 77 years old. He's a lot more with it and honestly more charismatic than somebody like Ron DeSantis, who's down there in his early mid 40s. So I think that when it comes down to it, the repetitive individuals are going to be these career politicians. And though while we can like critique Trump for leaning a little bit into the establishment during his presidency, and I agree with you on some of what you said in terms of the criticism there, I do believe that he still is this guy that is still bringing new things to the table. I mean, his platform hasn't been covered a lot, but it has gone more in depth in his 2016 or his 2020 platform, and he's talking about new things like finding a way to incentivize a new baby boom in this country. We do have a demographic problem, and you talk about spending. We're going to be in a massive problem if we're going to be spending with Social Security, et cetera, with the population pyramid and the direction that it's going. So if anything, one could argue that could, depending on how it's done, of course, kind of flip the script on that. But we'll really just have to wait and see. I do kind of want to get to the super chats here because we have a couple, and I don't know if people want to send in questions. I'm sure they'd be more than welcome to. Monica Terzic says DeSantis doesn't stand a chance. 80% of Republicans still think Trump should be president, even if he's convicted and behind bars. Shane Kina says DeSantis' own campaign made AI images of Trump hugging and kissing Fauci and passed them off as real. Liberals like Tim Pool even hate that. And with the whole AI generated thing, I really feel as if there's a difference between AI memes, and I'm sure you would agree with this, and using AI depictions of Trump hugging Fauci in campaign ads, because it seems like that's a little bit disingenuous there, passed off as something that actually happened, even though you can critique Trump and his during his presidency. The AI images that show that are a little bit misleading, and I don't really know if those should be used on a campaign ad, and I don't see Trump doing the same thing other than, he's gonna have an AI image of Ron on a rhinoceros as a meme, but that's meant to be funny. That's not meant to deceive voters into actually thinking that Ron was riding a rhinoceros. But
yeah, I agree. By the way, I made a video about it, and for those who, I mean, you could think what you want, it doesn't really bother me, but I'm gonna tell the truth regardless. If DeSantis shares AI images of him hugging Fauci, that's not good. They should immediately apologize, take it down, say it was a mistake, and not do it again. They don't do that. That's stupid. I'm not one of these people who's going to make excuses for it. If Trump's side does it too, at some point, that's also stupid. It's not we're not children. This isn't like a sandbox where Johnny picks their nose and Susie does it too. It's pathetic that people do it. And I just want to say this real quick, guys, regardless of who you vote for or who you like, all I'm asking is I think that RFK and DeSantis, it's making it a little competitive. And I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing, because I think Trump is very comfortable in some senses and what he has with his base. So he's not really trying to be challenged. And now that he's being challenged, you start to see baby boomer ideas. He starts to talk about big pharma a little more now that RFK is pushing him, and he kind of sounds like him. Competition is a good thing. And promise me, even if you hate everything I've ever said, please just be honest. That's all I'm asking. Be honest. If you say that DeSantis' establishment, because he's got 3 rhinos or 4 rhinos funding him, and Trump has 4 rhinos funding him, that can't be your reasoning for liking Trump more than DeSantis. If he takes donor money and he takes donor money, if he did this, but he did this is the part that's really bothering me. And I see it on both sides, but a lot of the Trump people, they're just repeating 3 phrases: establishment, rhino, etc. But there's no consistency to their thought process. Like, I'm all fine with if you hire Jeb Bush for this position, he's a rhino, so you're a rhino. If you truly believe that, then you have to use those same standards when Trump does it. The issue with the base right now is they don't do that. So it becomes almost like people are just pull string dolls. They have 4 phrases they say, but they don't even realize it. You know, you can make the same cases that Trump is now establishment. He was an outsider. He served. He's establishment. So the election is establishment versus establishment. And you got to pick which sellout you like better or which donor sucker you like more, and just be honest about it. But if people keep painting this idea that whenever Trump does everything, it's 3-dimensional chess and it doesn't exist, or he made a mistake and he means well, but when DeSantis does it, he's in on it. It's just going to come off fake. You're going to have people who agree with you. You're going to have people who tell you you're right. But at the end of the day, the truth is the truth, and that's not going to help the base any. It's just, you know, people are becoming the same hypocrites and double standarders that they complained about in the left for 4 years. So that's all I'm asking, is just be honest and hold your politicians accountable the same way you would if Romney or DeSantis did it. One thing real quick, sorry to ramble on, but when Marjorie Taylor Greene endorsed Kevin McCarthy, did you see how many influencers were trying to bite her head off? I mean, people were trying to ruin Marjorie Taylor Greene's life for endorsing McCarthy. Okay, that's your thought process. How come nobody was doing that to Donald Trump? He also whipped for McCarthy. Do you see how fake people are becoming? It's like, let's bite everybody's head off for doing what Trump does, but when Trump does it, we're kittens. Like, the movement is super, super fake, and it's like, I just don't see myself agreeing with like 70% of stuff I see, because people are almost just like rabid sports fans rather than principled, you know, patriots. Like, I don't, it's very off-putting to me personally, but I'm sure everything I'm saying is off-putting to 90% of your audience. So
I mean,
that's just the way it goes.
Yeah, and a lot of my audience has called out Donald Trump, or has agreed with the fact, you know, I've called Trump out for the McCarthy thing. I didn't think he should be endorsing McCarthy. I know he kind of, you know, was quiet about it. I think that's probably why a lot of people were attacking MTG. But like, yeah, I'd like to see more people push back when necessary. I think with the whole vaccine thing, a lot of people push back on Trump, and it did end up being pretty effective to at least get him to change his tune. And I also agree to an extent with the competition, because on one hand, we could say electorally, if we have an extra divisive primary, it's not going to be good for the party to, you know, be unified, win in November, so we can actually get rid of Biden. However, it is true that if you do have people that are pushing Trump to the right on a few issues and getting him to start talking about big pharma and all of these other things, getting him to be tough on, you know, the border more so than he was during his presidency, getting him to be, you know, less interventionist foreign policy, like, overall, I think that's a good thing. And if DeSantis running and maybe getting 20% in Iowa in these first few states, and even if he does like end his career nationally in the future because of it, but if he does push Trump on some issues, I think that's a good thing. And if that's the purpose he's going to serve, so be it. Same thing goes for RFK Jr. bringing some new things to the table, and pretty much anyone else in this race. I know that it's not just Trump and DeSantis, but it does seem like a lot of people in this race besides them do tend to be just your generic establishment Republicans that are probably just going to combine for 10 to 15% of the vote. And then you have Vivek, who I guess you would say is a little bit more intriguing. I don't really know much about his past. I've heard mixed things about it, but he potentially could push Trump to the right on a couple things as well. But in terms of super chats, Tyler R says, Rep, it's PA nationalist from Discord. Something I talked about the other day is any electoral votes Soros gets from Georgia or Arizona will be pointless when he's BTFO'd in Pennsylvania and loses Michigan by 9 points. Again, we didn't talk a lot during the stream about the electability argument. It does seem like that's something that is more discussed on Twitter with a lot of the DeSantis dick riders, as you put it, with the DeSimps over there. But Shane,
I
Or
do
you go
think,
ahead.
yeah, real quick, you could bring it up, but I do think that DeSantis would be better against Biden, but I didn't want to make that the whole argument because I think that's a weak argument where it's like I'm only vote like what if it was Mitt Romney that could beat Joe Biden? Would you vote for him? So I get that argument, and I do think that DeSantis probably could do better against Biden. But the reason I didn't bring it up is because that doesn't really mean much. I don't think people should necessarily they should vote with their values and morals over maybe picking someone like if you can't make a point for DeSantis other than he's electable, then he must not be that good. Like there's got to be better reasons than that, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, I agree. And I think policy does come first and foremost. I disagree personally. I think you look at the states needed for 270. I think Trump was that unique turnout, X factor in Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. And I just don't think those state parties are really competent enough, like Florida or North Carolina, to get the votes necessary to win, even if DeSantis might do a little bit better in like Georgia or Arizona. But after a long divisive primary, not sure if he really would. But I do think Trump will be the nominee. I do believe that, it's not even going to be particularly that close, which might be a good thing if he is pushed to the right or he is forced to battle with the establishment on the right that he had to battle against in 2016. Didn't really have that in 2020, and it definitely kind of showed during his campaign. Was a little bit less fiery, was more squishy, had worse people around him than he has now or 2016. So that's my take on that. In terms of the next super chat, Shane Keena says no binaries exist in the real world. There's this fallacy of the false dichotomy and everything being a spectrum that people don't recognize actual evil when all of it is right in front of their face. I guess that's talking about I don't know I'm not even entirely sure what he's getting at there. But it is true that a lot of people are not recognizing a lot of things that happen in front of their face. I think that's something that both of us talked about regarding the whole Trump and DeSantis influencers, because you do have people that definitely have blind spots on both sides and people that do get caught up in the drama on Twitter a little bit too much. I mean, it definitely is something that is real there. IB says, I don't think that Trump or DeSantis will win the election. The R's are a mess. We will have Biden for another 4 years. It's possible that they don't, regardless of whoever the nominee is. I just think that Trump does give you the better shot electorally. I do believe that he is better overall on policy, even if he's not perfect, as stated in this stream. Sam Matson says, address Ron's huge vulnerabilities on trade. That's something we didn't talk about. And it is an issue that might not be like the most attractive topic to talk about, or you might not care about it as much. But trade is something that really propelled Trump to the forefront in a lot of those states back in 2016 that I mentioned. And he definitely is a protectionist, believes in standing up for American workers abroad. Meanwhile, DeSantis is somebody who's even critiqued Trump on trade when he was running for governor with Trump's endorsement, is kind of opposed to his strategy, might give some vague statements about, oh, we support American jobs, but doesn't exactly tap into the real problems regarding that. I wasn't sure what your take was on DeSantis on trade, because I personally think Trump did a good job with it. You might be more libertarian and disagree with the tariffs, but I was just trying to get your take on that.
I would say I don't think he did a terrible job, and I'm not like, it's not the number one thing in my mind, but it's not something that I would knock Trump on. Like, he did such a bad job, and I think DeSantis would do better. DeSantis, I think he's got a clean slate. It's a pro and a con. You could kind of run on, I would do all this stuff, right? Kind of like Trump in 2016, but then will you really? I want to ask you a question, because eventually, even now in general, we're on the same side for the most part, but like eventually we're going to be together forever. No, but running against Biden one way or another. And this is my thought process with Trump. Say he wins, because this is something that's really bothering me from someone who wants the Republican Party to win, and it's making me a little nervous, is I understand about the election. I'm not going to get into it very much, even though they changed the rules on YouTube, but everybody is a little skeptical of what happened. Here's my issue. outside of that, obviously people think Trump can win again because he's running and people are going to vote for him. So they understand that we need to do it even better this time, be even safer, and also get so many votes that we make it harder for them to win in certain states. Like, that's the game we have to play to win. When I talk to a lot of people that like Trump, they'll be like, they act almost like entitled, like we won all 50 states. I even saw Carrie Lake retweet, we won California potentially. And to me, it's kind of making people think of this message of like, we won, we're going to win, everyone likes us, and we don't even really have to convince people. But at the end of the day, if Trump does win the primary, or DeSantis, but let's just say it's Trump for now, yes, we understand now the fighting's over. You do got to get suburban women on your side. You do got to get people that are conservative. I know so many people that are conservative. They don't really like Trump or DeSantis because they want abortions and stuff. I'm not saying you have to cave on the issue, but this does exist. What concerns me, and I want to see what you have to think about it on the Trump side, is this idea of like, we won all the states. It doesn't matter. If we lose, we're going to say it was rigged. If we win, we're going to say we won. But I don't feel like there's this sense of we need to really start convincing people. Like when I made Trump videos that got 20, 30 million views telling people Trump wasn't that bad, I'm thinking about it. I'm not just talking to my uncle who agrees with me. I'm like, how do I get a Democrat to listen to what I'm saying? Because they don't believe me. And it kind of worked. So I feel like there's a lot of smugness and a lot of like, you're either with us or you're a traitor, you're with us or you're a rhino, screw you. And that's really not a message that's going to win in 2024. And the reason that people feel like they can act like that is because they think that Trump is like this character that like, if he wins, he's going to win. And if he loses, we got cheated, like as if there's going to be no campaigning or convincing. And that kind of makes me nervous as a registered Republican.
Yeah, I mean, my take on that is I don't think we need to be overconfident. I mean, I've told people for the past year, 2 years, 3 years, this was 2020, regardless of what happened, was a close election more so than like a massive landslide. And I think that how do we win? Well, we need to chase voters, I think. I mean, we could spend all day about trying to talk about convincing people on the left over to our side. And maybe we could get some, hypothetically, but when it comes down to it, there's a big base out there of voters, many of whom are unregistered. And Democrats had the problem on their side. They didn't get enough turnout for Hillary in 2016. What did they do? They built up a massive voter turnout apparatus. They used the system to their advantage, and Republicans need to do the same thing. We need to harvest our own ballots where we can. If Democrats are going to be doing it, there's no reason why we can't be doing it. We need to be getting people voting early so we're not finding people at the 11th hour trying to get them to turn out and vote. And I think that that's what really matters first and foremost. We have to play like we're, 10% behind. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that you would agree with, because if we don't, we're going to lose again. Right. And it all comes down to turnout. It doesn't matter how many people that we persuade over to our side. 2022, a lot of the state polls showed us winning by, a landslide. We're going to get 53. Some said even 54 Senate seats. And we could even argue that the polls were correct, or maybe even underestimated us, but we didn't get out those disaffected voters in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin in some cases enough. And they exist, but we don't chase those ballots. We just say, oh, we're going to trot out our leadership to give these generic, 1980s, 1990s talking points on the campaign trail. And then they do that. They don't get these people to turn out. They end up losing. And then they try to blame people that were, against them in the primary, even though they thought, oh, we're going to win the general. We're going to win. Now they say, oh, no, we were always going to lose. It was always your fault. And I think that it's kind of a two-way street between the people on the MAGA America First side being too overconfident, and then the people in the establishment not really sort of complying or helping out. So I think that definitely there needs to be a little bit of just unity on the right, and we need to do everything we can, mathematically speaking, to get enough votes to go out there and win. I do think that even though we have a divided primary, this will be the last thing I say on this, I really do believe that at the end of the day, people that are saying, I'll never vote for Trump, or I'll never vote for DeSantis, which Trump's going to be the nominee more likely than not, a lot of people will eventually end up coming home, voting for the nominee, and then we could go from there. Because it is a problem. Overconfidence is a problem. Also, dooming too much is also another problem. We can win, even if you want to say it's a little hard. There's some, you believe in shenanigans here and there, but we can overcome, we can win. It just comes down to the fact that we're able to utilize the election system to our advantage, and not exactly doing that is going to be a problem.
Right. Real quick, I'm reading some of the comments. A lot of people get it. A lot of people don't. That's fine. But in California, ballot harvesting is legal. Legal ballot harvesting is legal. So Republicans learned how to do it, and they won more seats, and they flipped seats. So if you're gonna, this is the thing that I want to tell people. Like, I understand what happened in the election, but what people have to understand is if you 100% don't believe in it, then just stop talking about it. But I know you believe in it because you're still talking about it. So you wouldn't care about Trump over DeSantis if you didn't believe in elections. Let's say we're at halftime and we think that the ref is going to put 5 points on their board. There's two options that we have in this game. Either we think it's so rigged that we just walk off the court, which is what none of you guys are doing. So let's not pretend that you are, or else we wouldn't be talking about Trump or DeSantis. Or you say, now we have to bring it to this level because that's what they're doing. And when I say stuff like that, when I talk about how we can appeal to people, sometimes the response I get is so smug and so arrogant, where it's like what it would be like being at halftime with your team and being like, hey, we need to do this in the second half. We need to play better defense. We need to shoot threes. We need to, mark our man. And people are like, no, we don't. No, we don't. Because it's just the ref. No, we don't. No, we don't. It's psychologically, people have gotten in the zone of like, we don't have to do anything. You actually do, though. You actually do have to get voters on your side. If you don't believe in the election, then stop pretending like you care about Trump versus DeSantis, because you wouldn't even care about it. But you do care because you want Trump to beat DeSantis and you want Trump to beat Biden. And at a certain point, I do if Trump's the nominee too. So we do have to care about this stuff. If I just made a video about Trump, it said MAGA, build a wall, F you liberals, no liberals would have seen it. I made one. I said, here's why Trump's not that bad from my perspective. Got 30 million views. I got messages from people saying, yo, I was a Democrat my whole life. My parents used to watch CNN. Now they watch Fox. And I'm like, well, watch out for Fox too. But it was because I was thinking, how do I get this message to people that don't already know it? Someone puts the sleep emoji. You could sit in your echo chamber and say MAGA, MAGA, MAGA to people who agree with you if you want to. And there's nothing wrong with that for social purposes. But if you want to win an election, you have to pitch to people. You can't just act like everyone likes you. Everyone doesn't like you. The country doesn't all like you. It's not true. You didn't win all 50 states. Carrie Lake's lying. They tell you this stuff, ram you up like bees, and then nobody has any strategy to it. I'm not telling you to be fake, but in order to win an election in a general, you do have to campaign and try to be, convincing, not just like, screw you, shut up, I'm bored. Of course you're bored, because it's not just echo chamber babble, but this is what's going to win or lose the election. So I think people need to be real wise about it and not build a movement of like, screw everyone else. We won all the states, but the liberals are everywhere. How are the liberals everywhere if you won all 50 states? Because you didn't win all 50 states. There's people who like you. There's people who don't. There's funny business. Now we need to figure out how to do something or quit. If you don't think it's possible, quit. Get out of the game and stop talking about it. But you do care. And if you're not going to quit, then it's time for strategy. Then it's time for winning an election. It's time for being convincing. It's not time for just talking to people who agree with you and being like, it doesn't matter. It does matter.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I agree 100%. I mean, you have to play from behind. You have to win. And most people know that we can if they're not, just the dooming or whatever, the people that do that. I don't think it's productive whatsoever. I think we can win. No, we're not. We did not win California. We did not win Oregon, all these states that are deep blue. But like I said, I think that if we ballot harvest and beat the left at their own game, we could do better in them. So, so what we saw during the midterms, were flipping all these congressional seats in some states and losing in others where we didn't.
And someone's saying Trump already won the general. See, that's that smug Hillary type energy that's going to get you to lose it. Someone said Trump An0maly doesn't understand Trump voters. The reason I'm reading this is it's not all about you all the time. Okay. You don't understand me. I know you're going to vote for Trump. That's amazing. But if you want to talk about a general election, you're so selfish. You think everybody has to agree with you. I don't care. I'm just telling you, like, it's not all about you. I just made a 5-minute rant about how to win a general election, not how you think. We know how you think, and we know that you talk to other people who think like you, and you never reach outside of the bucket. That's not going to win a general. I'm trying to win it for your guy here. And you're just like, you don't understand us. We're just going to yell at everybody. It's like, whatever then. Okay, I'm sorry. You're amazing. You're the best.
And I don't think
get
it's. I don't think it's.
100% of suburban women on your side. Everyone loves you. Is that better?
Well, yeah. I mean, like I said, I agree to an extent. The overconfidence can be a problem. I get that. I mean, I've been overconfident before. We've all been overconfident regarding electoral politics for the most part. But I will say that, I don't think all Trump supporters think a certain way about some things. A lot of the people that will just go along with whatever he says are probably not even that, like, I guess you would say, not really that invested in politics as well. But that's just my take on it. I really think that, we can paint one side or another with a broad brush. I'll even say from time to time, not every DeSantis supporter in the real world has bad intentions or is a rhino or is insufferable, but the ones online do tend to be. So that's kind of the way I see it with regarding, painting the opposition to whatever candidate we support with a broad brush. I don't think it's really all that beneficial because, like I said, there are Trump supporters that do call out things that Trump does if they don't like him. And it's funny because I did that during 2020 and I received some hate from some of the people that are the biggest DeSimps now, ironically enough. So kind of shows just how the candidate tribalism thing kind of shakes out.
Right. When I say Republicans, like, it's not everybody. Like, I'm a registered Republican, but I'll be like, Republicans sucked in 2020. I don't be like, oh, I suck. I suck. Oh, no, I don't suck. No, I'm not talking about myself. Really, Thomas Massey was the only one who stood up against it. But it's more of like a let's go, boys and women. Like, let's win. Let's win an election. Let's actually make America great again. That's the type of energy I have. Not like not me. It's not me. It probably is you at that point because the Trump supporters, I see people in the comments say, yo, I'm the ride or die Trump and this guy's right. These are the people that are like, it's not me, but I know who he's talking about. And then it's the people who it is that are like, it's not me. It's always that way. I'm not that. It's like, maybe you're not, right? But maybe you are. I don't know.
All right. More super chats here. Alpha Buckeye says, if Trump loses the GOP primary, do you think he concedes? I think it depends on the circumstance, but there always is that chance of the fact that he wouldn't. And I think that that's another reason why DeSantis would be in a whole lot of trouble if he does win the nomination, because you are going to have a percentage of the base. And maybe these are the people that you're talking about that will say, I'm not going to show up for this guy. I'm more of a, more dedicated to Trump than this guy who's like trying to come up and take the bait and, try to end his career. But I don't think DeSantis is going to come close in the primary. He might win a couple of states here and there if he has a good run. If not, he very well could just be getting, third in South Carolina to one of the politicians that's running there that's from the state. So I guess I'll let you answer really quickly here. Do you think he concedes if he doesn't get the nomination? Which I think he does, but
I don't know. I can't even pretend to know. Maybe he would, maybe he wouldn't. I'm not sure. But I think that, if he says something, a lot of people will do it for sure.
Exactly here says, I know you mean well, but DeSantis will do much worse against Biden. He may win Arizona and Georgia, but he's almost guaranteed to lose Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. Trump could win all three, and DeSantis has almost zero shot. And I mean, that's the way I see it electorally. DS Cuber says, do any indictments hold water? What happens next? Well, I don't think they're going to bring this case to trial anytime soon. I don't know, but it does seem like they let him out of the arraignment without any like stipulations. There's no gag order like there was even for the Bragg case. There's no any sort of like house arrest or any of these type of stipulations they threw in the case. There's no conditions. So personally, I don't know. Yeah, what's up?
Sorry, I want to ask this a question about it. Do you think that there's a possibility? Because I do think DeSantis wins bigger with people like Rogan and Elon. I think he gets the techies, a lot of independents. But do you think there's a possibility that the Democrats are running the Pied Piper strategy again and elevating Trump with this? Because they have to know that this is the outcome. Before this even happened, like after it, Alvin Bragg, 20%. Like he's just skyrocketing in the polls and fundraising. Do you think there's a chance that they're doing this purposely because they see him as the weaker target or the easier to control?
I mean, I personally don't believe so. I think that, I mean, it's possible they know this is like helping him in a primary. Maybe they believe it's going to like hurt him in a general election. I think it's a wash. I think when it comes down to the whole DeSantis is like electable via independence, you have to envision a political environment between him and Biden where DeSantis gets the nomination. You have a very divided primary field. He's going to be attacked on a wide variety of things. They're going to be attacking him on abortion. They're going to ramp their base up on that more so even than they could ramp up their base on the Trump hatred alone. And he's going to try to flip flop on it. And I don't think it's going to end well. I think it's going to blow up in his face. I think that maximum he'll get like in the 260 range of electoral votes. And they have to know that as well. Why are they exactly trying to get him? Maybe because they believe that they can, you know, go out there, attack him, make him look weak in a general. Maybe they're just trying to do it so they could make him look weak against Biden. But I don't think it's really going to be something a lot of people care about. I think a lot of people care about the economy. A lot of people care about the issues first and foremost. And I think a lot of people know that it's kind of just a nonsensical set of charges. So I personally think that it's not going to really move the needle. I'm not going to say it's going to help Trump. I know
Bro,
Elon said it would.
It's already moved the needle. It's moved the
Well,
needle
for the
like
primary.
for the primary, yeah.
Yeah, for the primary. And maybe there is some like notion that, oh, well, he's going to get the primary, we'd beat him easier. But I personally don't believe that that's really true when you look at the map, when you take everything into account. And it's possible these just bounce off him completely, or they could try to get him to go into a plea deal so he doesn't get the nomination or he doesn't run. I don't know what's going to happen, but
for those saying that they're not, like a lot of people are like the Democrats are not that smart. They've already done this, guys. There's emails that prove that they already run Pied Piper strategies. So like the idea that people are saying that Democrats aren't, not only are they smart enough to do that, but they've already done it. So the evidence is there that they have done this. So it's not them that's not smart. It's conservatives that aren't smart for not even considering it. And when it comes to like them not being smart, they're evil, but they play evil chess and Republicans play checkers. They were able to railroad the entire Trump administration and somehow get him to run around selling vaccines and saying Sweden should have locked down. So are we really that much smarter when they can railroad a House and a Senate and a Trump? You know, they're not as dumb as people think they are. They're just evil, but they're not stupid.
Yeah, I mean, they are evil, but one could argue, because there were people saying, oh, they're propping Trump up in the 2016 primaries to fight against Hillary Clinton because all these other people were stronger. Trump was the only one that went out there and, you know, actually won the nomination, defeated Hillary Clinton. So that kind of put that to bed. So, I mean, it's possible.
But they did do that, though. It's a fact that they did do that. It didn't work if they didn't want Trump to win. But it's not like, oh, it didn't work. It's like published. You can find articles where their strategy was to elevate Trump and Ben Carson and candidates they perceived as easy to beat. I'm not saying it worked for them, but this idea that they could never do that, they already have.
I mean, they could be, and that might be why they're trying to do it. I just personally don't believe that the outcome is going to be exactly what they want. Because let's say Ted Cruz got the nomination. I think he was, first of all, he's polling worse than Trump. I think that probably would have been not something that would be electorally beneficial. Even if Rubio got the nomination, you know, could he have won the states necessary to get to 270? You could have had an electoral map that would have looked like, 2004 minus like New Mexico, Virginia, where he wouldn't win. And he would have still won the popular vote somehow as a Republican, but lose the election. So I don't really know if it would work. It could actually be a proven strategy. Yeah, I know some Dems told people in Massachusetts, vote for Trump in the primary. He ended up winning it big. But it kind of may have backfired because I don't really necessarily believe that, Jeb Bush would be a stronger general election candidate than Trump, or John Kasich or Marco Rubio would have been stronger. I mean, maybe you could make an argument for Rubio, but at the time, I really just couldn't see it.
I'm not saying they were stronger. I'm saying the Democrats perceived it at the time via the emails that, you know, there's a few candidates that they felt like were too much, that were easier for them to beat. So all I'm saying to people is now, because this is not an official poll by any means, but I think the Hodge twins have a huge conservative audience, like 100,000 something votes. Before the Alvin Bragg thing, they said, who do you like more, Trump and DeSantis? DeSantis got 65% of the vote and Trump got like 35%. Right after the Alvin Bragg thing, the entire poll flipped. And same with a lot of the polls. Like, you see almost like a bell curve. As soon as the Alvin Bragg thing, it led people right back into the hands of Trump without a reason besides, well, yeah, he didn't do all these things, which is why I like the guy doing more. But now I have to if they're going after them. All I'm saying is consider it. I'm not saying it's for sure. They really might want to do it. But if it's going to be one of these cases where it just is like a show trial for a year and nothing happens, you got to consider the fact that the Democrats are stupid, but not stupid. They're evil, but but a lot of times they do. Even with Russia collusion, everyone talked about it for 3 years. Not only did it railroad the Trump administration, but it railroaded most right-wing journalists, because instead of going on the offense and doing stuff with the power that they had, they were on the defense defending it. So I think the Democrats know, even if we can't get what we want from this court case, we can get the outcome of what we want the conversation to be. And now that's going to dominate the conversation of the next year. I just don't think Democrats are that foolish to be like, oh, we by a mistake, we gave money and power to Trump. Oops. Like, I think they're doing it purposely, in my opinion.
I mean, they could be, and maybe to an extent they do. I think you could argue it might be a mix of both. I think that this is something that they perceive as something that will help Trump in a primary. Possibly, yeah. I mean, especially after you see the first indictment, then they're going for round two. They'll probably try to indict him on the phone call he made to Georgia, which there's really no legitimate legal means of actually getting him on. But yeah, I mean, it's possible. It is helping him the more that they do this. And I just believe it could backfire, because I just personally don't think DeSantis is that strong of a general election candidate. And maybe if they, some Democrats would want to run against Donald Trump again because they would see Trump as the weaker candidate. Doesn't necessarily mean that he is. Even if they are, evil, they are smart in being evil to an extent, but they're also very smug and don't fully grasp how middle America works either, or they wouldn't be having to deal with Donald Trump to begin with in the first place. So
yeah, or they're trying to just, I don't know if this is considered a conspiracy theory, just figure out who doesn't vote for them. And, I don't know if I'd use the word replace, because they'll say that's a mean thing to say. But, I think they just hate middle America so much that they've figured out other ways of getting voters to the country that will, that they could give free stuff to, that'll vote for them temporarily. So, yeah, I hear what you're saying. They definitely hate you. Democrats are insane. They run every city into the ground. They're like garbage at this point. They're the worst people I've ever seen in modern history, but they're not always like dumb in their strategy. I feel like Democrats play evil chess and Republicans play like checkers or something. Like,
yeah, I agree with that.
Dude, real quick, because I'm trying to hype people up, trying to get people motivated to be real ones out here. When I went to TPUSA, I saw people cheering for Ted Cruz like it was Paul McCartney. Ted Cruz is gross. But anyway,
yeah,
it's like, dude, Ted Cruz, a year and a half after lockdowns, this really rubbed me the wrong way because I didn't get vaccinated. He said, let's take the masks off of vaccinated people on airplanes. This is the best our constitutional Republican can do a year and a half after lockdowns, trying to tell me, like, I would look at Ted Cruz if I saw him in person. I would be like, bro, I'd have to look down because I'm a little taller than him. I'd be like, I don't know why you thought that you deserve special privileges and freedom than me because I didn't get vaccinated. But my American right is to tell you that that's insane and you should be embarrassed and you should apologize. But here's the thing with Republicans. They never have to apologize because people cheer for them like they're freaking Paul McCartney. Like, there's these rhinos and swampers and losers on stage and everybody's cheering for him, even Trump to an extent. I'm not saying to hate the guy, but no one is ever accountable for anything because I feel like the Republican base, as tough as everyone is, they're almost like too nice and they make excuses. They're more interested in making excuses for Trump and Ted Cruz and all these people than they are with standing up against them and telling them to never do it again. If you looked at DeSantis in the face and you said, DeSantis, you locked down for 2 months and that's messed up and that's nice that you're doing all this stuff, but that was a mistake and apologize, I'd be standing right next to you being like, you're damn right. I don't care if it's Trump or DeSantis, but this is the divide and conquer, just like the left and the right and this and the that. The Trump and the DeSantis is part of the divide and conquer. A lot of the same donors and entities that control DeSantis also control Trump. It's just they're going to get people to fight over this
Well,
stuff.
a lot of them have defected, by the way, like from Trump from 2020 to DeSantis in 2024.
Yeah, I mean, I don't buy that Trump is so much above that. But if people want to believe that he's above that, then I feel like the next time he does something corrupt, people won't be there to stand up for it. All I'm asking is people, please, if Trump does win, and I hope he beats Biden, I think it's going to be a tough election. But please don't play this game of like maybe he's doing this because it's a secret strategy to her. It's like it's not a secret strategy, it's politics. He's just an effective politician because he's an effective leader that has convinced you that he wouldn't do that even when he does it. So in many ways, he's the best. In many ways, he's the trickiest. So that's all I'm asking. Believe what you say you believe and keep that same energy with Trump that people have with DeSantis and all these other losers. And please do not put them above it because that's what it is. It's professional car salesmen. They're like realtors, you know, they're so friendly with you because they want to sell you a house. Someone said smug anomaly. No, honest anomaly, strong anomaly, smart anomaly. You don't have to like it, but I'm not one of these people who's like, I don't believe what I said I was going to believe because the guy told me it. They're politicians, bro. Trump took hundreds of millions of dollars from donors too. He's not, people are like, well, who told you to say that? I didn't take $1 million from Pfizer. Trump did. I didn't take money from the Griffins. Trump and DeSantis did. I'm not taking money from these people. That's why I could say this. But you're obsessed with people taking donor money. You think you're like a hero calling DeSantis out for it, but then you slobber at Trump's shoes when he does the same stuff. I'm consistent. You don't have to like it, but it's the truth. And the reason Republicans get scammed on a loop is because they have the attitude that you have, which is like, find me some other boots to lick. I don't believe what I say. The second Republicans actually start standing up for what they believe is when we get results. We didn't get results in 2016 to 2020. We got a few Supreme Court judges, but we ended in lockdowns and vaccine sales, and nobody seems to care. So the next time you get scammed, don't blame the left. Don't blame the rhinos. Blame yourself because you love it. As long as they could package it with a MAGA hat, you would accept Karl Marx at your doorstep as long as he wore a MAGA hat. So, you know, stand up for what you believe and really be about it. Don't just do it when one candidate says it, but not the other one. That's how they get you. And Trump's going to get you again.
Well, like I said, I personally think we need to hold everyone accountable. That part we do agree with. But I do believe that there are Republicans out there who will critique Trump. And, you know, you mentioned Ted Cruz at TPUSA. Like I remember back in 2021, I think it was, he gave a speech there. He did mention, he said, get vaccinated. He was booed relentlessly by the crowd. And I don't really know how his tune has changed. I'm not a Ted Cruz guy, for the record. Just want to make that clear. But I do believe that, yes, there is an element of the base that is rising that will indeed hold politicians accountable, or at least will try to. Doesn't mean it's going to work. Doesn't mean that they're going to get them to change their tune. But like it, even with like MTG, not just the McCarthy thing, but like everything else, you see the people that loved her start to turn on her recently because she's kind of caved a little bit into the establishment more and more, which I don't believe to be a good thing. So there's that. And in terms of another thing that I'd like to ask you, because you said you're a big fan of Thomas Massie, would you critique Thomas Massie for not voting to censure Adam Schiff, and because he's had a few iffy immigration votes over his tenure in Congress based off of his like libertarian principles or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, if I haven't seen those immigrant ones, but if I don't agree with it, I have no problem calling him out. With the censure thing, though, if you look at what censure is basically like a condemnation. It really means nothing. It's like a professional, we're extremely disappointed. It's like a giant virtue signal that the House can pass. It's really nothing. They put a $16 million fine on it. Wow, obviously it's somebody that I don't like. Adam Schiff is terrible. To be honest, hopefully your audience will like this. I do have a Trump shirt. It's a pencil neck Adam Schiff shirt. I own that shirt. I bought it from Trump's website because I thought it was funny. It's like Adam Schiff with a pencil neck. I don't like the guy. With that being said, if you give the House the power to do a $16 million fine to somebody and you do it to Adam Schiff, when they get power, they're going to do it to 40 Republicans. They're going to try to bankrupt all of Congress. So I don't think that like doing a new thing that's never been done, that doesn't even make constitutional sense, is a good idea. I agree with Thomas Massie. I think Adam Schiff is garbage. I think they should definitely hold him accountable for anything that he's done illegal or immoral. But to set the new president to fine a congressman $16 million. This is how I feel like Republicans lose. They'll do it one time, lose the House to Pelosi and co., and they'll bankrupt every truth teller. You can't just do that over a House censure. A censure is not that, in my
But
view.
don't you believe they were going to start to do this to us anyways? Because we talk about how we don't use power when we have it to advance our own interests, and I agree with you there. But don't you believe that we're going to have to start moving the ball down that road sometime? Because I feel like
People definitely have to wield their power, but I don't think they should break the Constitution and set a new president to do it. For example, I think they could have built the wall when Trump was in and filled in the holes. I understand that there were some roadblocks, but they use executive power for big pharma. They did crazy, unique things that we've never seen in American history in 100 years to basically 15 days to slow the spread. And a lot of Republicans were in on it. So how can they use their executive power to not fill holes in the wall, but they could shut the country down essentially and make, Honeywell make ventilators that are killing people? Like, that makes no sense to me. So I do think that Republicans should wield their power, should hire good, should use the full power of the House and the Senate to investigate, go after people, and do it right. I'm tired of the Jim Jordan speeches that go nowhere. But to personally fine somebody $16 million in a censure, to me, that's not the way to do it. That's just my view, and obviously Massey's view. But I have no problem. I'm calling Massey out if I fundamentally disagree with what he says. It's not. I don't. It's easy.
okay.
But I do agree with his ruling there.
So we have a few more super chats. This will be the last call for super chats. I know we've been going for 2 hours, so I'm probably going to try to wrap it up in like about 5 minutes or so. But Sam Madsen says, as someone who lives around them, the suburban women are never coming back. And I do tend to agree with this take because it seems like Republicans will try to go after voters that they can't exactly win, whether if it's trying to placate suburban women here and there, or if it's trying to like do the whole platinum plan thing to try and get black voters on their side only to get 1 more percent. Well, you lose 2% of the white working class vote because you ignore their interests, and as a result, you lose the election in a bunch of key areas. So, I mean, I do think we can chase new voters. I don't believe they necessarily have to be, the voters that voted for Mitt Romney and then Hillary Clinton and then Joe Biden, because I think a lot of those voters are not necessarily coming back. And if we add new voters, it's just going to be your disaffected, everyday individual. Maybe hasn't even voted before or voted for Biden because their family just votes Democrat. No, he's from Scranton Joe or whatever. Then he goes in, screws over the American people, etc. So that's the way I see the whole election strategy. I'm not sure if you disagree. Just really quick, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say I don't like the pandering. I think the Republican Party is terrible at pandering to black people. Like, they try so hard and it doesn't work. And I think you're right that trying to placate other people that don't like you isn't the play. But I want to give a quick example because this is a real example. It didn't affect my vote and it didn't affect my mother's vote. But when she watched Biden versus Trump, the debate, it was terrible. Chris Wallace sucked. But one thing I did notice, even as someone who voted for Trump and was rooting for him, I noticed that he kept interrupting Joe Biden. And I was like, don't do that because Joe Biden can't speak. So it's actually really dumb strategically because the more Biden speaks, the worse it is for him. So by Trump interrupting him, it's almost like he made him look like the victim. And I remember talking to my mom and she still voted for, the Don, but she was like, I didn't like it almost made people feel bad. And I feel like especially women are more emotional, so I don't think placating and doing policy choices is bad, but I think there are certain ways you could pick up voters. And I understand people should vote based on policy, but not everyone does. Like, having humility. Like, if Trump came out and was like, I've defended him 1,000 times on the wall. I'm like, he didn't say anything racist. But if he said, to be honest, in that speech, nothing was even wrong. But if he came out and said, listen, I'm not apologizing, but I understand sometimes the way I word stuff, doesn't get through to people. So here's how it is. Or I'm going to stop crying about Bill Barr, Kayleigh McEnany on True Social. Like, these little things I feel like could pick up that crowd without him caving on values. But instead, they'll not do that and do 18 platinum plans, and that'll do nothing. So I think, a little bit of humility goes a long way, and a little bit of humanness to it, which Trump does at times. He comes off very genuine. I think we can win more people without doing more platinum plans. To
Yeah.
agree with you, yeah.
And it does seem in terms of like being more measured. So far, I don't know if you've watched a lot of Trump's speeches or you've seen the town halls, but it does seem as if, even though some people will criticize him, he's low energy, it does seem like he is a little bit more measured. And electorally speaking, he gets the nomination. I think that that arguably could help him. Some might say, oh, it's because he's like getting older or whatever, but he does seem like he's talking about it in a more, measured fashion. He still gets the zingers in there, but it's in a way that it's a lot more sympathetic. He's being patient with the moderator, and then he gets the one-liner in there about the nasty person or whatever. And I think everybody agreed she did an awful job at moderating that town hall. But I think that
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, but yeah, I thought he did a good job in the town hall. I thought the questions were softball, like Democrat questions, which was weird. Like it wasn't a lot of like,
well, it's CNN.
yeah, I think they did some sort of deal. Honestly, I think Trump arted the deal them there. He basically said, because he said he did a deal with them. People cried about, oh, here, he said that on True Social. I think it's like, yo, give me your platform. Let me get a good audience in there. We'll tailor it this way. And it worked because it only got them ratings temporarily. And now their ratings are down because their audience is mad at them. So I think Trump arted the deal at CNN there, to be honest. Like he tanked their ratings and just milked them real quick.
No, yeah. I
I'm fine
mean,
with it.
because I think they were setting it up to be more of like a trap. Oh, we're gonna talk about the election, 1-6, all this stuff. And I think at the end of it, he kind of set the trap for them because he just was put together, did a good job, and their audience is mad at him, or as mad at CNN, obviously, and it is causing them to have a ratings dip. So now the next time that they're going to need to boost their ratings again, it's going to have to be bring Trump on. So he's going to be able to kind of use the platform there, and I think that was a smart thing that he did. John Waffle H2P says the Senate is a must-win for Republicans. That is key to really drain the swamp. No cabinet for Trump or DeSantis will be good unless we vote out the McConnells and Romneys of the world. And I mean, that's another thing. Primarying Mitt Romney, that's going to have to be on the docket. It's going to be about a year from now where you have the Utah primary. We're going to have to do what we can do to get rid of him. Hopefully, try to get McConnell to step out of the way of leadership. The problem is I don't know who he's going to be replaced by, because it seems like a lot of the bench is about just as establishment as he is so far. So I don't really know how we're going to immediately be able to go out there, drain the Senate swamp. But for cabinet picks, we do have to pick up those Senate seats so we could at least get better nominees in there than we were getting in last time that would still get through. DS Cuber.
What do you think about Rand Paul, real quick, for like if he was the Mitch McConnell? Rand Paul?
I mean, it probably would be better. I do have policy grievances with him here and there. I know, like immigration, even like crime, because, he's more libertarian than I am for sure. I'm a little bit more of a populist on that side of things. But I think that overall he has had a good eye of being like the one no vote on a lot of like these deep state people like Comey, their confirmation votes. Like he was the lone defector. So I would prefer him to McConnell. I think a lot of people would. A lot of people, even if they don't agree with him all the time, do tend to like him. He's a likable guy. But when it comes down to like all the policies, I don't think he's like who I would see as ideal. But compared to most people in Congress, like in leadership, yeah, I'd much rather have him in there than McConnell. It's not even particularly close, especially when it comes down to something like foreign policy.
Yeah, and for the record, I'm not I'm libertarian fiscally in some cases, but I'm not. Libertarians hate my take on crime. Like I don't think their policies would work. And on a lot. I mean, it sounds nice, but yeah, I don't agree with them on that either. I don't know Rand Paul stuff. He'd be way better than McConnell. Like that would be a step in the right direction. I don't know if that could happen, but he's one of the only senators that I really I think seems pretty genuine when it comes to conservatism, like fiscally at least.
Well, yeah, I think that his intentions are more genuine, and he'll like even talk about things that most libertarians don't talk about economically. Like he'll try to put together a healthcare plan. Maybe I don't fully like agree with it. We could debate if it would work or not, but I don't think his intentions are necessarily bad, so to speak. DS Cuber says vote like you're going to lose but still gonna try. I agree. And I do know that there is like a rally effect, and this is like the counter argument to that. Like, oh, we're going to win, so we have to vote. But at the same time, it's like, I think playing like we're 10 points behind while still acknowledging the chance of victory is ideal. And that's the way I see it. So I think we're going to wrap this up. I don't think we have any more super chats, so I do appreciate everybody that tuned in. It's a little bit of a 2-hour discussion. We haven't done a whole lot of discussions, debates on the channel, so I'm kind of glad that we were able to do it, and hopefully we do more. There's a lot of other of the more diehard, DeSimp type of people that I've invited on, but we still haven't heard anything back from them. I mean, they're not really. I don't think that the paychecks that they've been getting cover their dialogue, but what can I say?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh no, I'm just I guess we're just wrapping up here. So tell people where they could find you.
Yeah, first I want to say thanks for having me on.
No problem.
I think that just like there's some losers on the DeSimp side, I think you have a reason for what you believe, and it's well spoken out. And not that everyone who avoids debate with me feels that way, but I feel like a lot of people aren't ready to challenge their ideas or have a conversation. So I appreciate for you for doing it. I think you're a genuine person. You have very good energy, easy chat, very cool guy. Thank you for having me on. And yeah, people can find me. I have a YouTube channel. It's An0maly, An0maly, or all my links are at dreamrarelinks.com. Someone said don't want to find them. I'm here, Diana. You don't want me, but I popped up on your computer screen. I always just think that's funny where people be like staring at me and I'm like, I point them out and they're like, huh? But no, it's okay, Diana. No worries. Yeah, dreamrarelinks.com. There's all my links, and I'm always doing analysis, news breakdowns, podcasting, and I'll have you on the show one time. I'll have you on my show to talk about some like probably neutral topics, some just random stuff of the week, because I definitely like your vibe. I think you'll have some good takes on worldly events, so I'll bring you on.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. And thank you for coming on. Like I said, not everybody wants to have discussion. We may disagree, and that's fine. I think it's important that we have this arena, especially because now it's like the peak time. Everyone's divided. We have to, kind of sort these things out, kind of get the opinions out there the best way we can so we can move the movement forward in a, more positive direction. And that's a good thing. So I do thank you for coming on. We are going to end this stream. I know it's been 2 hours. So like the stream down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below. And I will see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle, out.